Chapter 649. With this single move, the celestial eradication sword formation was unleashed to its full power. Sword shadows came encompassing over, and each sword shadow could send a city flying. The seething spatial ripples caused light rays to distort and cover up the sky. The air was completely sucked dry, and the area within a range of 100 lis seemed to have turned into a cosmic vacuum. With a single move, the surroundings had turned into an environment that was like a cosmic vacuum. Even Alexander's countenance changed slightly at the sight of that astonishing power. Jacob looked at this scene in horror. Sensing that his martial will had been seriously injured, he was still in disbelief. "How dare you? How dare you? The king is here, the royal family is on my side, and the entire empire is on my side. How dare you make a move before Alexander?" Jacob could not understand what Feng Xinjian was doing at all. Was he really not afraid of death? Alexander sighed inwardly. What a guy! To think that a real dragon has really been nurtured in a small pond. To think that a Tier 2 divine level expert would have such powerful powers. If it wasn't for the evil god summoning ritual, I'd really kill you on the spot. At the sight of this scene, Alexander also displayed his true powers. He struck out with an overturned hell, which similarly distorted space and sucked dry the air. The power was so violent that it was as if the world was trembling. Back then, compared to the first prince smashing the entire hell into the mortal world, the space in Alexander's palm was in a state of chaos. It was like the world's most evil and brutal power, wanting to turn the entire mortal world into hell. Kacha kacha kacha. The sword shadows and palm shadows collided intensely. Feng Xinjian let out a stifled snort and retreated several hundred meters, disappearing into the spatial gap. Alexander's palm trembled slightly, and he felt even more astonished. What a guy! This is over 70% of my powers. Seeing that Feng Xinjian had darted into the spatial gaps, Alexander's martial will turned into a black whirlwind and swept out. Feng Xinjian, you're really not bad. This is the first time I've seen such sword arts talent. However, in terms of actual cultivation, you're still too inexperienced. After saying that, he unleashed a palm strike, causing space to surge, and Feng Xinjian, who was inside the spatial rift, was jolted out. Next, Feng Xinjian's vision changed, and he found that the world before him had completely changed. The seawater beneath their feet and the tropical island were all gone. They had already turned into large areas of volcanoes, lava, mountains of knives, and seas of fire. The blue sky and white clouds in the sky were gone, replaced by endless volcanic ash. The air was filled with the smell of sulfur and magma, and there was no longer any trace of the seascape. Looking at this scene, Feng Xinjian let out a sigh of relief. God's kingdom? In the divine country, Tier 5 divine level experts could fold, distort, stretch, and compress space. At this stage, they could truly use these means to create a space that belonged to them. It could be a storage space or a small world like the Hades Vault. The space that was specifically used for combat was called the Divine Kingdom. The Divine Kingdom was a space condensed by a Tier 5 divine level expert for combat. It was usually very suitable for the user to unleash their powers, and it also possessed special spatial structures that could assist the cultivator in attacking. After being dragged into Alexander's Divine Kingdom, Feng Xinjian instantly lost his senses toward Jacob and Alexander. That's right. This is my Divine Kingdom, infernal hell. Alexander's voice rang out from all directions, accompanied by seething lightning, dark clouds, and volcanic ash. It was as if the demon lord of hell was bellowing. You don't have the means to grasp space like a Tier 5 divine level expert, so it's impossible for you to break out. Just stay here in peace. There's no need for you to act mysterious before me. I know the abilities of a Tier 5 divine level expert very well. It's just a divine kingdom and not a real small world, Feng Xinjian said calmly. You want me to stay here in peace? You'd better take a sword attack from me first. As he spoke, Fang Xinjian once again slashed out with his sword. Sword light flashed, cutting across the sky, and sword marks tore the world apart. The dark clouds in the sky were slashed apart, and the volcano under his feet was split into two. A hole that was several tens of kilometers long was torn open in the ground. The hole was so deep that the bottom could not be seen, and one could only see the shadows of scorching lava in its depths. However, Fang Xinjian frowned slightly. It was because he had not planned on attacking such a large area. However, when he slashed out with his sword, he discovered that his powers were instantly dispersed by the other party's spatial structures. It was as if the water in the pipes had flowed into the sewers. This sword attack seemed to have a great impact, but its prowess was dispersed. It was not as condensed as Fang Xinjian had expected. This was the Divine Kingdom. By condensing all sorts of complicated spatial structures, Fang Xinjian's attacks were dispersed, but Alexander was not affected at all. Moreover, the lava in the volcanoes below seemed to have a special pattern as well. It was probably another powerful formation. Fang Xinjian let out a cold snort and slashed out a few more times with his sword. Ripples in the space kept on fluctuating. He was not trying to destroy the environment. Instead, he was trying to destroy the spatial structures in the infernal hell. Sword shadows danced in the sky, expanding rapidly like a tempest. Wherever they passed by, they would flatten the space with violent powers, allowing Fang Xinjian to unleash his powers freely. Just as he was continuing to expand his territory in the infernal hell before him suddenly shattered and disappeared. Fang Xinjian had once again returned to the island. However, Jacob and the Emperor were nowhere to be seen on the island. All that was left was Emperor Alexander's faint voice ringing in Fang Xinjian's ears. It was like a decree from a god high up in the heavens. Fang Xinjian, I've already sent Jacob away. The Panwu heavenly raiment will be given to him as compensation. Don't look for trouble with him anymore and don't create any more trouble. You know that I have sudden inspiration. No matter who you want to kill indiscriminately, I'll come and stop you. Collect your thoughts. Come to the imperial capital in a few days' time to receive your commendation and prepare to accept your new position. Remember, the reason why I've spared your life is because I want to make use of you. However, whether or not you'll be able to continue living after I'm done using you will depend on your performance. Don't make a mistake and waste your talent. Hearing Alexander's words, a cold gleam shot out from Fang Xinjian's eyes. He let out a cold snort and sighed inwardly. The prowess of the 4 white-bone short swords in the celestial eradication sword formation is still insufficient. Otherwise, even if I were to be dragged into the divine country, I'd be able to slash out with a single sword attack immediately. Hearing the Emperor's warning, Fang Xinjian did not plan on abiding by it at all. He would head to the imperial capital, but that would be after he killed the Holy Light clan's head, Jacob, and snatched back the Panwu heavenly raiment. However, in order to kill the other party, he would have to break through Alexander's protection. Right now, if he wished to improve his strength once again, he would either have to strive for the 3rd tier of the divine level or increase the prowess of the celestial eradication sword formation. At the 3rd tier of the divine level, he would have to forge his physical body and then allow it to merge perfectly with his martial will. Only then would he be able to strive for the 3rd tier of the divine level. This was not something that could be done immediately. In order for the prowess of the celestial eradication sword formation to increase once again, he would need to increase his sword arts cultivation or obtain a longsword that was a divine remains equipment. At the thought of this, Fang Xinjian's eyes gleamed. With his sudden inspiration, he had a plan. Wang Xiaoyan, Fang Qian, and the others should have already forged divine remains equipment. If I have a divine level longsword, I'll be able to unleash more of the prowess of the celestial eradication sword formation. I'll be able to break through Alexander's protection and kill Jacob completely. At the next moment, Fang Xinjian's figure suddenly shattered, and he flew to the sky above the great western city at light speed. Then his physical body reassembled. Chapter 650. At the second tier of the divine level, one would shatter their physical body, roam the world with their martial will, and then reassemble their physical body. This would be equivalent to moving at akin to light speed, and the time spent was mainly in the process of shattering and reassembling the physical body. The time taken to transmit the martial will at light speed was almost negligible. However, everything had its advantages and disadvantages, and it was the same for the second tier of the divine level to move at akin to light speed. Although such a movement was fast, allowing one to reach almost any place in the world instantly, one would not be able to react during the journey. The transmission speed of martial will was too fast, and even divine-level experts would not be able to react when faced with such means that were equivalent to teleportation on the world's scale. This meant that in the process of moving at akin to light speed, one would basically not know what they had encountered along the way. This meant that it would be very difficult to use this speed to search for things along the way. One would basically have to know the general direction before heading to a place. Fang Xinjian arrived at the great western city instantly. Looking at the people coming and going, as well as the commoners who knew nothing about the various divine-level experts' movements, Fang Xinjian let out a soft sigh. There were countless people in the massive city, but their lives and deaths could be determined by a single thought of a divine-level expert. Alexander's appearance set off alarm bells for Fang Xinjian. If the people in power who had powerful legacies and endless resources were talented enough and had attained the divine level for a long enough period of time, then after the world's metamorphosis and the appearance of the nine-tiered heavens, the speed at which their abilities increased would be extremely fast. For example, the 8-directional Crimson Dragon's Undying Xia had charged up to level 2 after the world's metamorphosis. The full moon shrine's blue sacred moonlight had reached the pinnacle of level 2, and the myriad stars palace's astral ancestor had even attempted to strive for tier 3 of the divine level, albeit failing. The thing that surprised Fang Xinjian the most was that the Empire's Emperor Alexander had advanced to tier 5 of the divine level. This showed how great his accumulation, talent, and resources were. However, it was said that in ancient times, there were experts at tier 1 of the divine level who had trained for several decades. After the world's metamorphosis, they had cleared several tiers of the 9-tiered heavens within a single night and had advanced to tier 6 or even tier 7 of the divine level. For example, the legendary divine Sun Emperor's master, the Supreme Flame's sacred king, had killed 99 divine-level ferocious beasts after attaining the divine level. He then used their bodies as materials to train in seclusion for 90 years. When he came out of seclusion on the first night after the world's metamorphosis, he cleared all 8 tiers of the 9-tiered heavens and reached the legendary tier 9 of the divine level. He was invincible in the world overnight. In comparison, Alessandra's situation wasn't that exaggerated. However, Alexander was already at tier 5 of the divine level, and even he was unable to kill him. He could only go up against Alexander and had even condensed a divine country. If that were the case, the Mage Association and the Holy See of Truth would only become even more terrifying. Fortunately, he was immune to black magic and had a great advantage against the Mage Association. However, he still needed to become more powerful. The next moment, he flashed again and appeared in Wang Xiaoyan and Fang Qian's studio. Seeing Fang Xinjian's sudden appearance, Wang Xiaoyan asked in surprise, "What's the matter, Xinjian? Why did you suddenly come over?" However, Fang Qian smiled and said, "You finally remembered to come over? Are you here to see the divine weapon? We've already forged it for you." As she said that, she moved to the side and looked toward the center of the studio. A platinum-colored longsword was stabbed into a square crystal platform. At the instant he saw this longsword, Fang Xinjian felt an unprecedented sharpness. He even had a feeling as if a blade was slashing past his face. Almost at the instant he saw this sword, Fang Xinjian's eyes lit up. Good sword. This was a long sword that was entirely platinum-colored. It was slender and long, and the sword hilt and blade were connected as one. There were no protrusions in the longsword. The longsword continued to emit faint electric light, and it looked just like a bolt of lightning. Of course it's a good sword, Wang Xiaoyan said. Wang Xiaoyan said, we've spent several months, expended countless materials, and put in a lot of effort to forge this divine remains equipment longsword. It contains countless secret arts of our mountainous sea dynasty. Even if you were to give these materials to someone else, they might not be able to succeed even if they were given 10 times the time. Fang Xinjian reached out and picked up the platinum-colored longsword. Almost at the instant he held the longsword, an intense piercing sensation came from the longsword. It was as if countless electric snakes were spreading into his body. As the electric currents spread out, he felt that wherever this gush of power passed by, his physical body would only have the illusion that it was about to collapse. Wang Xiaoyan said proudly, this sword is called the Thunder Calamity. It can convert any power channeled into its body into the will of heavenly thunder. This will of heavenly thunder has an extremely strong destructive force against heavenly thunders and terrestrial magnetism forces. As long as there's enough power, it can cut through almost any physical substance. Fang Qian, who was standing behind Wang Xiaoyan, added, it's basically similar to the interference of electromagnetic forces. The heavenly thunders and terrestrial magnetism forces in Miracle World are similar to the electromagnetic forces in our world. They are the foundation that all things in the world are formed from. Without the heavenly thunders and terrestrial magnetism forces, there's no way for them to form physical substances. The Thunder Calamity is able to absorb power and convert it into some kind of heavenly thunder will, interfering with the basic structure of physical substances and thus being able to cut through almost any physical substance. Fang Qian then smiled. This was also the idea that you suggested back then. You hoped that the weapon we created would be as sharp as possible. It would be best if it could reach the level of being able to cut through all living things and affect electromagnetic forces. Thankfully, we managed to achieve this by relying on materials worth 10 million gold and the remains of divine-level experts. Thinking of the materials she had spent 10 million gold on, Fang Qian could not help but click her tongue. If the same value were to be converted to earth, it would be equivalent to several trillion gold. It would be enough to change the world in any country and create a new atmosphere. However, all of it had been used on this weapon. Hearing Fang Qian's and Wang Xiaoyan's explanations, the gleam in Fang Xinjian's eyes grew even brighter. He sensed a familiar aura from this sword. This was a feeling similar to the all-conquering sword. Although this Thunder Calamity was also only at level 31, it was very suitable for Fang Xinjian. Alright, this Thunder Calamity can be used to bear the weight of my all-conquering sword and truly strengthen the prowess of the Celestial Eradication sword formation. At the thought of this, Fang Xinjian exerted force in his hand, which was holding onto the sword. Waves of sword intense that represented the all-conquering sword, one of the 4 Celestial Eradication swords, gushed into the sword. After being converted by the Thunder Calamity, they turned into waves of heavenly thunder will. Streams of thunderbolts swam about in the Thunder Calamity, and the heavenly thunders and terrestrial magnetism forces throughout Fang Xinjian's body felt as if they were about to collapse. At this moment, Fang Xinjian suddenly had a realization. My infiltrating void sword is compatible with astral forces and gravity. My all-conquering sword is compatible with the heavenly thunders and terrestrial magnetism forces and electromagnetic forces. The Celestial Eradication sword formation can become even stronger. Chapter 651. One day later, Fang Xinjian floated in the sky above the Great Western region. Electricity circled around his body, and then they gradually dissipated. In front of him, the lightning tribulation was floating and sinking, and he could no longer feel any sharpness from it. After spending 1 day and 1 night, I've finally channeled the power of the all-conquering swords sword intent and the celestial eradication sword formation into the thunder calamity. Looking at the divine sword before him, Fang Xinjian revealed a smile. In the next moment, 3 white lights flashed in front of his chest, and 3 white bone short swords appeared. Now that I've activated the celestial eradication sword formation, with the thunder tribulation as the core, the power that I've extracted from the surrounding 100,000 meters has increased by more than 2 times. The 3 white bone short swords were like 3 satellites orbiting around the thunder tribulation. Violent and turbulent powers reverberated and transmitted between them. At the same time, the entire thunder tribulation had turned pitch black. Everything that passed by it, including light, was sliced apart, causing the place where it was located to become pitch black. Simultaneously, among the 3 white bone short swords, the short sword that represented the infiltrating void had hints of light spots on its body. It was the concept of the astral forces that had been integrated into the Universal Astral Realm book. Of the 4 celestial eradication swords, infiltrating void, light pursuit, all-conquering, and instant, Fang Xinjian had used infiltrating void to represent gravity and had also drawn in the myriad stars palace's astral path. The all-conquering represented the electromagnetic force, and the thunder tribulation divine sword carried it. If Fang Xinjian were to be able to represent the light pursuit and instant as well, and if he were to find divine swords to bear the weight of infiltrating void, light pursuit, and instant, then the prowess of the celestial eradication sword formation would increase by leaps and bounds. However, after obtaining the lightning tribulation, Fang Xinjian's strength had increased tremendously once again. It's a pity that the smelting and modification of the Hell's white bone armor is too difficult. Otherwise, with another divine sword, my strength would be able to improve even more. However, Fang Xinjian also knew that such things could not be rushed. Right now, it was already very hard for Fang Qian and Wang Xiaoyan to be able to create the thunder tribulation so quickly. No matter how much he urged them, it would be useless. Something like a divine sword was something that could only be chanced upon. He could only rely on Wang Xiaoyan and Fang Qian to modify it. What Fang Xinjian could truly control from now on was still to strive for the 3rd tier of the divine level. However, this would require him to reforge his physical body and for his martial will and physical body to reach a 100% level where he could freely switch between them. Only then would he be able to attempt to strive for the 3rd tier of the divine level. He would still need some time to accumulate his strength in this aspect. The myriad stars palace's body tempering arts and the mystic abyss vault's body tempering arts are both not bad. However, if I were to find the 6 great clans, I'll be able to collect a batch of body tempering arts for Tier 2 of the divine realm, allowing my foundation to become even stronger. Just then, a graceful figure flew up. It was Audrey, the number 1 beauty in the northern ice region, whom even Xia wanted to snatch. Audrey put on a purple cloak and flew up. The cloak exuded a faint power. Clearly, it was a flying tool. Looking at Audrey, Fang Xinjian asked, "What's the matter?" Audrey stuck out her tongue, feeling a little embarrassed. A hint of redness flashed on her fair and tender face as she said, "Xinjian, you've already left a stream of sword intent in my body. If anything were to happen, you'd be able to sense it at any time. Then can I go out? It's so boring staying in the academy all day." Go out? Fang Xinjian was stunned. He had never felt that staying in the academy was boring. If it was not because this world was a world of competition and there were things that needed to be done everywhere, he would be very satisfied just staying in the academy and cultivating every day. However, Audrey was not a cultivation maniac like him after all. Instead, she was a young lady who was like a flower, and it was very normal for her to like going out to play. Moreover, Fang Xinjian had sudden inspiration and the ability to move at akin to light speed as a second-tier divine-level expert. Therefore, he was not afraid that Audrey would encounter danger. Seeing Fang Xinjian nod, Audrey spun around excitedly. She grinned as she hugged onto Fang Xinjian's arm and said coquettishly once again, "Then can I return to the Northern Ice region?" Regardless of whether it was the Great Western region or the Northern Ice region, Fang Xinjian would be able to arrive in the blink of an eye if he moved at akin to light speed. Therefore, after seeing Fang Xinjian nod once again, Audrey let out a cheer. She was like a sparrow that had dashed out of its cage. She even hugged Fang Xinjian and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Then she looked at Fang Xinjian excitedly and said, "Oh, right. Do you want to come with me to the Northern Ice region to play?" Fang Xinjian shook his head. "All right, you can go back first. I have some things to do as well." After sending Audrey away, the memories in Fang Xinjian's mind started to seethe. Holy Light Clan, Jacob? I remember that the old man I killed previously was also from one of the 8 great founding clans, right? The 8 great founding clans were clans that had been founded by the 8 divine-level experts who had founded the country. Other than the current empire's royal family, there were also the Tianmen clan that he had encountered in the Full Moon Shrine and the Hades Vault, as well as the Holy Light clan and the other 5 clans that he had encountered in the fight for the Panwu Heavenly Raiment. That Tianmen clan. I remember that they have already surrendered. I should be able to find out where the Holy Light clan is from them. After obtaining the Thunder Calamity, the Celestial Eradication Sword formation had been upgraded once again. This time around, Fang Xinjian's abilities had increased tremendously and he would naturally not let Jacob off. This time around, even if Alexander were to come and stop him, Fang Xinjian was confident that he would be able to kill Jacob with a single sword attack. Jacob and Alexander would never have expected that Fang Xinjian would be able to increase tremendously in just one day and come looking for them once again. With a flash, Fang Xinjian appeared in the eastern sand region. At the next moment, his body cut across the sky like a supersonic plane, incessantly sweeping through the desert in the eastern sand region. Fang Xinjian slowly went through his memories in his mind. I remember that the enraged lion and that clan head that the Full Moon Shrine killed are from the Tianmen clan. They did mention their location. 5 minutes later, Fang Xinjian arrived in an oasis. Seeing how busy and prosperous the place was, he was slightly surprised. Although the Tianmen clan is built in the desert, they are self-sufficient. They also have a tremendous amount of wealth and population. They are really thriving. At the next moment, with a flash, he flew toward the center of the Tianmen clan and arrived in a huge conference room. Simultaneously, at the Tianmen clan's conference table, a white-haired old man scolded furiously, "Shan He, what on earth are you hesitating for? The 6 great clans have already merged into one, helping each other and forming an alliance. Lord Jacob and the others have all attained the divine level. There are a total of 6 divine-level experts and the several centuries of legacies of the 6 great clans. It's time for us to join them." Another old man said, "That's right. That Fang Xinjian killed our clansman and our clan head. How can we submit to him? Joining the alliance of the 6 great clans now is the best opportunity. With Lord Jacob backing us, there's no need for us to worry about that Fang Xinjian anymore." A middle-aged man stood up and scolded, "No matter how amazing that Fang Xinjian is, he's still just a human, a young man. Right now, Lord Jacob and the others have accumulated a lot of resources and have 6 great experts. If we don't join them, are we going to risk our lives for that kid Fang Xinjian? He killed your elder brother, your father, and your grandfather. Do you really not want to seek revenge?" Opposite them, under the protection of a few other elders, a skinny and weak-looking young lady said calmly, "Elders, I understand how you guys are feeling. However, you weren't at the Full Moon Shrine that day. If you hadn't seen how terrifying Fang Xinjian is, you wouldn't be able to understand it. We've already agreed to submit to him. If we were to go back on our word and join the Holy Light Clan's side, we'll probably be facing annihilation immediately. Chapter 652. The skinny young lady who spoke was the daughter of the Tianmen clan's head, Shan He. Fang Xinjian remembered seeing this girl at the full moon shrine previously. She had been hiding behind the many elders of the Tianmen clan. Back when he had killed the enraged lion and the Tianmen clan's head, this lady had not shown any anger, grief, or sadness. He had thought that this girl did not have a close relationship with the Tianmen clan's head. However, it seemed that she was a shrewd woman. However, the other elders present were very dissatisfied with Shan He's reply. This was especially so for the white-haired old man who was leading the opposition. He shouted, "Shan He, you're really treacherous. Fang Xinjian killed your elder brother, father, and grandfather. To think that you're not thinking of seeking revenge? Right now, the 6 clan heads have attained the divine level, and this is a rare opportunity. Yet, instead of seeking revenge, you want to submit to Fang Xinjian. I won't acknowledge you as our Tianmen clan's head." Elder O Bai, a middle-aged man in black clothes standing next to Shan He said furiously, "The young clan head is doing this for the sake of the Tianmen clan. Forgive me for being blunt, but with the abilities that Fang Xinjian displayed at the full moon shrine, he might not be able to kill the 6 clan heads head-on. However, it's an easy feat for him to seek revenge on us. It's really unwise to offend Fang Xinjian for this." Elder O Bai let out a cold snort and said, "After our 7 great clans join forces, we'll collectively move to the Holy Light Fortress in the depths of the northern ice region. There's the Holy Light Clan's great protective formation there. You guys should understand the Holy Light Clan's research in formations. The Evil Spirit sect has merely gotten a little bit of their research, yet they've already turned the entire northern ice region upside down back then. If we hide in their great protective formation, even if Fang Xinjian were to come personally, he won't be able to hurt us." Hearing Elder O Bai's words, the few elders who had initially supported Shan He also hesitated. It was true that Fang Xinjian was terrifying, but if they could hide in the Holy Light Clan's great formation and avoid Fang Xinjian, that would be great. Shan He said coldly, "The Holy Light Clan wants to swallow up the other 6 great clans. If we go, there probably won't be a Tianmen clan in the future." Elder O Bai laughed out loud and said, "The 6 clan leaders have achieved the deity level, and they've shared their divine arts with each other. This is already a great achievement, and their divine might is astonishing. The Holy Light Clan's number 1 in this generation, Bai Di, was even more talented and could be said to be a monster. It was said that he had already stepped into the divine level before the age of 30. Now, the 6 clan leaders all thought highly of him and passed down their techniques to him. After going into seclusion, they even handed over all the management of the 6 clans to him. Now, Emperor Bai has already contacted the leaders of the 6 great clans. There will be a meeting in 3 days, and from then on, the 7 great clans will help each other and form an alliance. White Emperor! I've heard of him. It's said that he's the strongest among the younger generation of the 6 great clans. Lord Jacob once praised him, saying that he is a genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. It's said that the other patriarchs have taken him in as their godson. He has always been the leader of the younger generation of the 6 great families. The 6 clan leaders have been in seclusion all year round, comprehending their divine arts. In the future, Bai Di will probably be the one taking over the various great clans. Thinking of how the 6 great clans, together with the Tianmen clan, would be a tremendous force if the 7 great clans were to join forces? They would be able to shake up the entire empire. Hearing Elder O Bai's words, the other elders were not the only ones who were whispering to each other. Even Shan He frowned, her eyes filled with worry. Fang Xinjian, who was hiding in the spatial gaps, listened and roughly understood the situation. The news of him killing 5 of the 6 clan leaders and shattering Jacob's physical body had probably not reached these few great clans yet. Thinking about it, how could Jacob have had the time to spread the news within a single day? Moreover, this news could not be spread out easily. Otherwise, if the news of 5 of the 6 clan leaders dying and 1 injured were to be leaked, it would immediately cause a huge uproar. It was unknown how much trouble would be caused. The 6 clan leaders had been preparing the formation for the gates of heaven all year round, cultivating in seclusion on the small island, and exchanging their divine arts. It seemed as if they had handed everything to a young man by the name of Deities. This person was the most outstanding person among the younger generation of the few great clans. He also had the ambition to join forces with the 7 great clans, lead countless experts, and stir up a storm in the world. Fang Xinjian gave it some thought and released his sword fingers, sending a stream of consciousness into Shan He's mind. Don't argue with him. Shan He was slightly surprised and thought, who's speaking? I'm Fang Xinjian. I'm looking for someone from the Holy Light clan. If you agree to form an alliance with him, I'll accompany you to the banquet 3 days later. Hearing the words Fang Xinjian, a hint of complicated emotions flashed in Shan He's eyes. She nodded slightly, indicating that she understood. Looking at Obai, who was still giving a long speech, Shan He waved her hand and said, "All right, I got it. I agree to join the alliance. 3 days later, I'll personally make a trip to the northern ice region." Oh! Elder Obai was stunned for a moment, but he immediately reacted and spoke in the tone of a senior. Good, good, good. It's good that you can understand the big picture, Shan He. Now that the world has undergone a metamorphosis and the 7th onslaught is about to arrive, it's the time for our 7 great clans to join forces and achieve great things. That person from the Holy Light clan has great talent and is extremely talented. When the time comes, you must have a good chat with him. With that, he even smiled ambiguously at Shan He. With the death of the clan head, it's still too hard for the young clan head to support the clan as a girl. Deities is a rare talent from our 7 great clans. Young clan head, why don't you get closer to him? Hearing Elder Obai's words, how could Shan He not understand what he meant? Not only did he want the Tianmen clan to join, but he also wanted her to hook up with Deities. Thinking of this, a hint of killing intent flashed in Shan He's eyes. However, Elder Obai did not care about Shan He's feelings at all. He laughed out loud and then left. The envoy from the Holy Light clan is still waiting for news from me. I'll go tell them the good news right away. Looking at the proud smile on Elder Obai's face as he left, it was clear that he was making use of the Holy Light clan's influence to flaunt his prowess. Thinking of this, Shan He clenched her fists even tighter. That old fogey really deserves to be killed. Fang Xinjian did not say anything. With a slight movement of his body, he followed Obai out. Obai arrived at the courtyard he was staying in and flipped open a mirror. As water ripples flashed in the mirror, a middle-aged man dressed in white appeared in it. When Elder Obai saw this middle-aged man, he bowed humbly and said, "Thankfully, I didn't let you down and didn't let Lord Deities down. Shan He has already agreed to the alliance and will head to the northern ice region in 3 days' time." "All right." That middle-aged man in white nodded and said, 3 days later, head to the Divine Sword Peak at the northernmost point of the northern ice region. There'll be someone to receive you." Fang Xinjian frowned. He had not expected that the other party would be contacting him remotely. Moreover, even at this point in time, the other party was still unwilling to reveal the Holy Light clan's true location. These great clans that had existed for several centuries were really cautious. However, he did not mind waiting for 3 days at most. Moreover, the 7 great clans would be gathered in 3 days' time. It would be convenient for him to wipe them out in one go. Chapter 653. Elder Obai smiled and nodded. Then he said hesitantly, "Then the thing that Lord Deities promised me." "Don't worry, the white-clothed middle-aged man said coldly. What kind of character is Lord Bai? Amongst the younger generation in the world, there's no one who can compare to him. He's destined to dominate the world, an existence who can stir up a storm in the world. How can he be greedy for that little thing of yours? Just wait patiently. Elder Obai smiled and nodded, eventually turning off the mirror. That rascal Shan, he finally understands the big picture. With the 6 great clans joining forces, probably only the royal family in the entire empire will be able to fend them off. What can that mere Fang Shijian amount to? Thinking of this, Elder Obai smiled even more happily. Fang Shijian did not say anything and left with a flash. He was not willing to alert the enemy. After all, he would just have to deal with them 3 days later. With a flash, he appeared in a garden. Shan he seemed to have long known that he would come. She stood there alone and had already dismissed her servants. Seeing Fang Xinjian's sudden appearance, her countenance changed slightly. However, she did not reveal any anger or anxiety, displaying her shrewdness. She merely asked, Fang Xinjian, what are your plans this time around? Are you going to wage war against the 6 great clans? Fang Xinjian asked calmly, can't I? Shan he frowned and said, the heads of the 6 great clans have all attained the divine level. There are a total of 6 divine level experts, and each of them has several centuries of legacies from their respective clans. They have countless divine weapons, secret arts, and trump cards. Even if you were to deal with them, you wouldn't have the confidence to win, right? I don't wish to bring the Tianmen clan into a desperate situation. Although she had not been willing to betray Fang Xinjian, she had not been willing to help Fang Xinjian take the initiative to deal with the 6 great clans either. In her opinion, it would be for the best if the 2 of them did not interfere with each other. Otherwise, if they were to fight, both sides would probably suffer great losses. The Tianmen clan would suffer great losses, and they might even end up as cannon fodder. Although Fang Xinjian was powerful, Shan he also understood that the accumulation of the 6 great clans was not to be underestimated. This was especially the case when the 6 clan heads shared their great arts and went into seclusion together. Their improvement in martial arts would probably far surpass the imagination of ordinary people. As the leader of an aristocratic family, she had never doubted the strength of an aristocratic family. However, Fang Xinjian said calmly, one day ago, I met Jacob and the other 5 clan heads in the southern sea. Hearing Fang Xinjian's words, Shan He's pupils contracted slightly. Then Fang Xinjian continued calmly, they set up the gates of heaven formation and besieged me. In the end, I killed the heads of the Night Massacre, Illusory Clan, Dark Shadow Clan, Berserk Dragon Clan, and Thunder King Clan. I also crushed the body of the Holy Light Clan's head, Jacob, and seriously injured his will. Impossible! Shan he cried out in astonishment. You're saying that you single-handedly killed the 5 clan heads with a single sword and dealt Jacob with severe injuries? How was this possible? All of them were divine-level experts. Moreover, the formation of the Gates of Heaven was the Holy Light Clan's signature formation. The Gates of Heaven was also a divine equipment that had been passed down for several centuries. With it as the center, the formation could absorb the power of sunlight within a range of several hundred lis. Coupled with the reinforcement from 6 divine-level experts, this prowess is simply world-shaking. How could they have been killed by you with a single sword attack? Shan he found it hard to believe what Fang Xinjian had said. Even though she knew that it was unlikely that Fang Xinjian would lie to her, she still found it hard to believe. Fang Xinjian was not even 20 years old and had cultivated for less than 2 years. To think that he had single-handedly killed 5 divine-level experts and dealt serious injuries to the Holy Light Clan's head, Jacob. Such a thing was far too astonishing and had surpassed her imagination. Fang Xinjian ignored her doubts and continued, however, when I was about to kill Jacob, Alexander came out to stop me, allowing that old B** star to escape. This time around, the reason why I want you to bring me to the Holy Light clan is to force Jacob out and kill him. The words Alexander seemed to have a terrifying magical power. When Shawnee heard this name, she could not help but draw in a cold gasp. You said that Alexander stopped you? Are you talking about Alexander Krieg? Who else could it be? Fang Xinjian said coldly. If it wasn't for him, Jacob would have been killed by me. At the next moment, just as Shawnee was about to say something, Fang Xinjian tapped out with a finger, sending the scenes of him killing the 5 clan heads, dealing serious injuries to Jacob, and fighting against Alexander into Shawnee's mind. As the images were transmitted, Shawnee's eyes were wide open like light bulbs. She looked at Fang Xinjian as if she was looking at a monster. Fang Xinjian shook his finger at Shawnee and said calmly, "In any case, I'll be going to the Holy Light clan with you 3 days later. You just have to cooperate well and don't get any ideas. Otherwise, after I crush the 6 great clans, I won't mind wiping out your Tianmen clan." In this instant, he felt extremely thankful for her choice. In the snowy mountains that were extremely far away in the northern ice region, in the depths of the many layers of snowy mountains, a mountain peak pierced through the cloud layers, piercing straight into the sky. At the peak of the mountain, a man dressed in white stood proudly like a god who had descended from the heavens, looking down at the mountains and the earth under his feet. Behind him, a lady of great beauty sat quietly at the stone table. Her hands moved incessantly as she brewed tea. Her movements were practiced and graceful, and as she did so, waves of fragrance were emitted from the teapot. She took a sniff of the tea, smiled, and said, "This is a new tea scent by Meng Lang from the Illusory clan. It's called coconut fruit tea. The taste isn't bad." Coconut fruit? This name is quite special. Bai Di turned and looked at that lady of great beauty with a gentle gaze. He then walked to the stone bench and sat down. "Let me have a taste." After tasting it, he laughed and said, "Linger, your tea brewing skills are getting better and better." Just then, the middle-aged man dressed in white walked up, looking at Bai Di with great respect and admiration. This young man before him had grown up over the past 10 years and had completely established his prestige among the 6 great clans. He had also allowed the Holy Light clan to become the leader of many clans, and their influence in the dark reached several great regions. The wealth and influence they had hidden were all extremely great. With just a single order from him, he would be able to shake up the world, and with a single word, blood would flow like a river. This was especially so for the past 3 years, when the 6 clan heads had been training in seclusion for an increasingly long period of time. Baidi's words were even more effective than the clan heads. The middle-aged man firmly believed that under Baidi's lead, the 6 great clans, no, the 7 great clans would definitely develop to an unprecedented level. They might even be able to replace the Krieg royal family. The middle-aged man half knelt and said, "Sir, there's news from the Tianmen clan that Shawnee has agreed to the alliance. I've made an appointment with them to wait at the Divine Sword Peak. When the time comes, they'll be teleported to the manor through a formation." Bai Di waved his hand and said, "Uncle Ing, how many times have I said this? Don't kneel before me." "Sir, etiquette can't be neglected. 3 days later, you'll be the leader of the 7 great clans. With the 6 old ancestors by your side and the potential influence of the 7 great clans spread across the world, even the Krieg royal family will have to show some respect to you. Moreover, my life was saved by you. So what if I kneel?" Chapter 654. Bai Di shook his head. "I was originally only willing to be an unaffiliated person in the mountains and have no intention of fighting for the position of leader. However, with the world in turmoil, there's a need for someone to step forward and save the people from their predicament. However, there are many mediocre people in the world. The Krieg royal family is selfish by nature, imposing taxes and collecting exorbitant taxes. The Holy See of Truth has endless internal strife, and none of them are far-sighted. The magic association is inhumane and not a blessing to the world. As for the other mediocre people, they're not worth mentioning at all. Once the calamity arrives, all of them will probably turn into dust. That beautiful lady said, Dongfang Ling's talent is outstanding and he's probably about to attain the divine level. Can't he? Bai Di shook his head. He's a martial arts fanatic. It's hard to nurture him and his future is limited. The beautiful lady asked again, that Fang Xinjian killed Xia, defeated the blue sacred moonlight, crippled the first prince, and reached the second tier of the divine level at such a young age. Can he be considered a hero? He's militaristic, making enemies everywhere, and has no foundation at all. He seems to be very impressive, but he's actually on the verge of collapse. The beautiful lady asked curiously, what about the first prince? Amongst the younger generation, he's the first to attain the divine level. Although he's been crippled by Fang Xinjian, it's said that he's even more unfathomable. He cultivates diligently every day and hasn't become dispirited despite falling from the clouds. His state of mind is truly terrifying. With the world's metamorphosis, the strength of the experts in the world has increased at a rapid rate. George has lost, and he has fallen behind. There's no way to cover up this fatal flaw. From the moment he was crippled by Fang Xinjian, he had already been eliminated. Bai Di shook his head and sighed. Since that's the case, I can only take on the responsibility. The middle-aged man said, Sir, you are righteous. All the lives in the world depend on you. The beautiful lady at the side looked at Bai Di with even more splendor in her eyes. She sighed in her heart. 3 days later would probably be a day that would change history. To be able to witness the rise of such a legend in history was truly her life's fortune. The middle-aged man asked, I wonder when the 6 old ancestors will return? This time around, the alliance between the 7 great clans is so great that it can engulf the world. Master, foster father, and the others will definitely return, Bai Di said. If it's fast, it'll be today. If it's slow, it'll be 3 days later. Foster father and the others will definitely return. At the same time, in another unknown underground cave, the Night Massacre clan's head suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were still emitting the pain of death. He suddenly woke up and said in a daze, I'm still alive? Raising his head, he discovered that Jacob, Illusory Clan, Mad Dragon Clan, Thunder King Clan, and Dark Shadow Clan leaders were all smiling at him. Ye two asked in a daze, we're all dead. He died, but he came back to life. You can say that he's still dead. The head of the Illusory Clan said, we were killed by Fang Xinjian. However, Alexander used his unrivaled abilities to retrieve our personal information in the ether particles and reconstructed our wills. The head of the Dark Shadow Clan added, thereafter, the Black Mage King personally performed level 12 black magic to reconstruct our bodies and reconstruct our physical bodies. The 2 experts used their secret techniques at the same time, but this could not be considered as resurrection. Instead, they created another batch of people with the memories of the 5 clan leaders. However, whether or not the new batch of 5 clan leaders with the same memories would still be the original clan leaders was a philosophical question. No one present cared about it. Hearing that the Black Mage King and Alexander had performed their secret techniques together, the head of the Night Massacre clan said in astonishment, they've joined forces? They haven't really joined forces, Jacob said with a cold smile. Jacob sneered and said, these 2 top-notch experts have formed an alliance for the evil god summoning ritual, but it's just a facade of unity. They want to control our 6 great clans, but we can make use of this opportunity to benefit from both sides and reap all the benefits. This time around, they've depleted a lot of energy to reconstruct your wills and physical bodies. This has benefited us. As he said this, he took out the Panwu heavenly raiment on his back. The Panwu heavenly raiment had regained its luster, and the power it contained seemed to be even stronger than before, flashing with colorful lights. However, the divine armor's will was nowhere to be seen, making the Panwu heavenly raiment usable. Jacob said fervently, "This Panwu heavenly raiment has been restored by the Gold Mage King and the will within it has been killed. It's even more powerful than before. However, this power is too strong, and it's impossible for a single person to control it. They thought that there would be a rift between us because of this divine armor, but they don't know that our 6 great clans are helping each other. The rapport we have isn't something they can imagine." The head of the fervent dragon clan also grinned. "It just so happens that they've sent us this Panwu heavenly raiment. The 6 of us can refine it together and get stronger." Although this Panwu heavenly raiment was still not comparable to the Hell's white bone armor, it was still something that the Mountainous Sea dynasty had put in a lot of effort to create. The power it contained was not to be underestimated, and it had already made up for and even surpassed the losses they had suffered from the gates of heaven. The head of the Illusory clan then said, "These aren't the only benefits. The Black Mage King used black magic to help us reconstruct our physical bodies, allowing us to secretly comprehend the profoundness of black magic and help us forge our conjured physique. Do they think that we don't know? The diabolic energy is extremely powerful and boundless, but it's the best target to imitate when condensing one's martial will. As long as we can comprehend a hint or two of the profoundness from this black magic, we'll have a greater chance of striving for the 2nd tier of the divine level." Jacob smiled. All right. Since that's the case, we'll go into seclusion for 3 days. We'll first refine this Panwu heavenly raiment and completely stimulate its powers. We'll then properly comprehend the profoundness of black magic. 3 days later, we'll head back to participate in the alliance that Bai Di organized. After we've completely digested these resources, we'll join forces to annihilate that guy, Fang Xinjian. That's right. I won't be able to rest easy if I don't annihilate that thief. As Jacob said this, he grabbed toward the Panwu heavenly raiment's helmet. The Panwu heavenly raiment's power is overwhelming, and we won't be able to control it individually. Let's split the positions evenly and control the powers of different parts. We'll then combine them into one and completely unleash the prowess of the Panwu heavenly raiment. I'll form the head. With a grab, he grabbed the Panwu heavenly raiment's helmet in his hand. I'll form the torso. I'll form the arms. I'll form the right leg. I'll form the left leg. 3 days later, outside the Tianmen clan's door, Obai looked at Shan He with some puzzlement. His gaze swept toward the young man next to her and he asked, "Young clan head, this time around, it's the alliance of the 7 great clans. This matter is of great importance, so it's better that we don't bring people who are unrelated with us." Shan He frowned and said, "This is a friend that I've gotten to know through life and death when I went out to train. With him around, I'll be at ease." Elder Obai looked at the slightly deformed Fang Xinjian and smiled coldly. "Young man, this is the gathering of our 7 great clans. Outsiders will be asking for trouble if they go in." Chapter 655. Fang Xinjian did not say anything. Since when had he paid any attention to a character like Elder Obai? Fang Xinjian merely lifted his head and threw a glance at Obai. With a sweep of his martial will, Elder Obai's entire body stiffened, and his mind went blank. Fang Xinjian then threw a glance at Shan He and said, "Let's go. Let's head over earlier." Shan He nodded and instructed the elder next to her, "Then let's go." Elder Obai was like a puppet, his mind going blank as he followed the others and left. The Tianmen clan was a clan with a legacy of several centuries. Therefore, they would not just fly over with a group of people. To the people from the aristocratic clans, that was something that only nouveau riche and geniuses without any foundation would do. The people from the Tianmen clan arrived at a platform, and a dark blue airship was already parked there. This blue airship was a great treasure of the Tianmen clan, the Pantheon airship. It was a superb airship that the Tianmen clan had spent 50 years to build. Not only could it fly at 10 times the speed of sound, but it also combined defense, attack, and investigation into one. It could be said to be a weapon of war, and it was also a weapon used to support the Tianmen clan. Shan He looked at the Pantheon airship with a hint of pride and introduced it to Fang Xinjian. This Pantheon airship is the culmination of the countless efforts of our Tianmen clan's ancestors. Even if it were to face divine-level experts, its defense system would be able to put up a fight. What do you think? It's all right. Shan He brought Fang Xinjian along and walked onto the Pantheon airship. Several elders followed behind them, frowning slightly as they looked at Fang Xinjian. They had never seen Shan He being so close to a man before. Moreover, this man seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, and they had never heard Shan He mention him before. The middle-aged elder, Elder Grand, who had supported Shan He the most previously, frowned. What background does this person have? Why is Shan He so respectful toward him? However, although they did not bring up the fact that Shan He had brought along a man whom she did not know so suddenly, they did not mention it due to her status as the clan head. A short moment later, the flying shuttle was activated. Powerful magnetic forces were emitted from the flying shuttle, interacting with the geomagnetic forces. The entire flying shuttle flew out with a swoosh, reaching 10 times that of supersonic speed in almost 5 seconds as it flew rapidly toward the northern ice region. Shan He accompanied Fang Xinjian and stood at the bow of the ship, while Grand brought a few elders and stood at the back. Grand said, "Clan head, this time around, 6 of the clan heads from the 7 great clans will be here. The geniuses from the other clans will also be here. We've gathered some materials, and it's best for us to understand them in advance." Shan He nodded and said, "Go on, I'll listen." However, Elder Grand looked at Fang Xinjian with some hesitation. It seemed that he was not willing to share the information about the big families in front of an outsider. However, Shan He shook her head and said, "There's no need for you to have any reservations. This person is a trustworthy person. If you have anything to say, you can just say it directly." Hearing this, Grand's frown deepened. Just then, Fang Xinjian said, "There's no need to say anything. They're just a bunch of useless people. What's there to listen to?" Hearing this, Grand's frown deepened, and he started to look down on Fang Xinjian even more. Humph, Bai Di has dominated the clans and is the #1 young leader of the 6 great clans. Yet, he still treats the wise with respect and even became sworn brothers with a few young masters from the great clans. Even he isn't as arrogant as you are. When the other elders heard Fang Xinjian's arrogant words, they also felt very uncomfortable. Haha, he's really arrogant and ignorant. The 6 great clans have a deep background and have many geniuses and experts. How can you look down on them? This kid is really fearless because of his ignorance. Even if Fang Xinjian comes, Dongfang Ling is participating, and the Empire's 5 princes find out about it, they won't look down on our clans. He's really an ignorant junior. But with this, Miss Shan He should know what kind of person he is. Just as the few elders were waiting for Shan He to rebuke Fang Xinjian, she nodded and said, "That's true. Let's not listen to him then. Elders, you guys can go and rest. With the Pantheon arc speed, we'll be able to reach the northern ice region very soon." In Shan He's opinion, since Fang Xinjian was able to kill even the heads of the 6 great clans single-handedly with a single sword attack, those juniors from the 6 great clans were really nothing to him. However, Shan He's attitude caused the few elders to secretly frown. It's a pity that although this person is arrogant, Miss Shan He seems to trust him a lot. If this were to continue, it probably wouldn't be a blessing for our Tianmen clan. That's right. Could it be that this person performed some martial arts and bewitched Miss Shan He? Glenn and the few elders were communicating rapidly through information streams. They exchanged glances, each with a worried look in their eyes. Fang Xinjian would be able to easily deduce what they were thinking about. However, he did not care about it at all. There were many people in the world who had all sorts of thoughts, and it was not like they would be able to affect him just by thinking about it. No matter how these elders looked at him, they would not be able to change the outcome of Feng Xinjian's trip. Therefore, Feng Xinjian naturally did not care about it at all. Simultaneously, in a mysterious valley, the sun was shining brightly, birds were chirping, and flowers were fragrant. There were fields, flower beds, medicinal fields, and even horse farms in the entire valley. It gave off a feeling of paradise. A massive manor was built in the center of the valley. This was the headquarters of the Holy Light clan. Not only was it located in a flat valley that was like spring all year round, but the entire valley was also set up with a great formation of the gates of heaven. It could be said to be blessed by the heavens. Right now, there was a great commotion in the manor. Wave after wave of people kept on walking in from the entrance. Amidst the crowd, an extremely beautiful lady stood in a corner of the square like a crane among chickens. It was the Northern Ice region's top beauty, Audrey. She looked at the people coming and going with curiosity and asked, "There are so many experts? Why are there so many experts gathered here?" Next to her, a cute young lady smiled and said, "I told you that I'm here to bring you to see a grand scene, but you didn't believe me." Audrey had returned to the Northern Ice region to relax, but she had been brought by her best friend, Xingxing to participate in this gathering of the 6 great clans. As experts with powerful auras, deep auras, and exuberant vital energy and blood walked in, Audrey's expression grew increasingly surprised. "There are so many experts, and they don't seem to be from the Northern Ice region, right? Why don't I know any of them?" Xingxing smiled and said, "You know of the 8 divine-level experts from the Empire's founding, right?" Seeing Audrey nod, Xingxing continued, "Other than the royal family, the 7 great clans left behind by the 7 divine-level experts are participating in this gathering. To think that it's them?" Hearing this introduction, Audrey revealed an astonished expression. These 7 great clans had been in hiding ever since the Empire's empire was founded. Even Audrey had only vaguely heard rumors about them. Chapter 656. It's said that these 7 great clans have been hiding behind the scenes for many years, but their hidden influence is not to be underestimated. They control countless aristocrats, factions, and organizations. What are they gathering for today? Audrey asked in surprise. It's said that the 7 great clans are going to join forces, Xingxing said excitedly. Look over there. That's the leader of the Lightning Path, Wade. And that one over there is the Eastern Sand Region's Friarly clan. Audrey threw a glance over. Under Xingxing introduction, the Fire Dance Sect, 5 Thunders Cult, Oath of Romance, Hero Society, and various other factions, organizations, and clans had all rushed over, displaying the unparalleled hidden influence of the 7 great clans. Just then, a series of gasps rang out from the crowd. Audrey and Xingxing looked over and saw a purple-haired young man with sharp eyebrows and sharp eyes walking over while being surrounded by others. Xingxing said agitatedly, "That's the young master of the Illusory clan, young Master Meng. He's one of the 4 gentlemen. As expected, he's also here this time around." Audrey frowned. "Is he very famous?" The great clans are a small circle. They interact with each other internally and don't think much of the small sects and factions outside, Xingxing explained. But young Master Meng has another nickname outside, Illusory Sword. Audrey was taken aback. Illusory Sword? Isn't that the #1 swordsman in the Southern Flame region? To think that he's young Master Meng from the 7 great clans? Haha, you didn't expect this, right? The influence of the 7 great clans is everywhere. Look at that person. He's the Northern Ice region's deputy governor, right? You didn't expect him to be a disciple of the Holy Light clan, right? Xingxing said proudly. The 7 great clans have a legacy of several centuries and have taken root in the empire. It's just that they usually hide themselves and don't reveal themselves. Once they really activate it, it'll be a world-shaking event that can stir up the world. Even the Empire's royal family can't be easily humiliated. Audrey frowned and said, "The royal family has divine-level experts backing them up." Xingxing shook her head and said, "Among the 7 great clans, 6 of the clan heads have already shared their remarkable abilities and attained the divine level. Who in the entire empire would be able to go up against 6 divine-level experts?" Hearing this, Audrey drew in a cold gasp. 6 divine-level experts with several hundred years of legacies, endless influence, and wealth. Such existences were truly astonishing. Moreover, they were going to join forces now. At that moment, several more voices rang out. Audrey and Xingxing looked over and saw 3 young men, who were either elegant, deep, or shrewd and tough, walk in. Xingxing said, "The Umber clan's young master Ing, the Night Massacre clan's young master Yi, and the Berserk Dragon clan's young master Long. The 4 nobles are all here now." Looking at the 4 gentlemen, Xingxing's eyes revealed a look of admiration. She said, "These 4 people are the most outstanding people among the 7 great clans. Not only are they like the sun at noon in the circle of the great clans, but they are also the core members of the younger generation. They also have their own statuses outside, and their reputations are like the sun at noon. All of them are dragons among men." Xingxing sighed and said, "It's said that the 4 of them are close to attaining the divine level, and they'll probably attain a breakthrough in a few months' time. By then, the 7 great clans will have over 10 divine-level experts. With an influence like this, they'll be able to sweep through the empire, and even the royal family will have to show them some respect." Looking at the 4 gentlemen who were surrounded in the center and receiving countless people's adoring, envious, and admiring gazes, Audrey frowned slightly, feeling worried for the Empire's future situation. However, just then, a shout rang out from outside the crowd, "Bai Di is here." The 2 words Bai Di seemed to have a special magical power. With the appearance of these 2 words, the entire gathering fell silent, and no one spoke. Amidst the silence, as if the sound of a television had been switched off, everyone looked in the direction of the entrance with fanatical, adoring, and excited gazes. A young man with white hair, white clothes, and white eyes walked in slowly. The young man looked like the spring water on a snowy mountain, like the moonlight in the sky, like the innocence in a child's eyes, like the beautiful memories in everyone's hearts. He did not say a single word, nor did he do anything, but he gave off an unparalleled sense of trust and conviction, bringing with him an unbelievable affinity. With his arrival, the 4 gentlemen were the first to step forward and go up to welcome him. "Elder brother! Elder brother, you're finally here. We've been waiting for you for a very long time." The 4 gentlemen welcomed Bai Di respectfully and passionately. The crowd and the surroundings were like planets surrounding the sun, surrounding him. Wherever Bai Di went, he would be the center of the entire gathering. There were people who kept on coming up to greet him, trying to get close to him. An extremely beautiful lady and the middle-aged man dressed in white, Uncle Ing, followed from afar. They looked at the man who was like a god, and their gazes were filled with an expression as if it was only natural. This was Bai Di, the pride of the 7 great clans, a hero who held great authority in the world, and an existence who was destined to go down in history. Audrey looked at Bai Di in astonishment. Even the 4 gentlemen were extremely respectful toward him, and the leaders of countless factions and clans were bowing and scraping before him. Who on earth was this person? Xingxing looked at Bai Di with a gaze as if she was looking at a miracle. It was as if she was looking at a god who had descended into the mortal world. "This is Bai Di, the top person among the younger generation of the 7 great clans. He's the successor that the 6 old ancestors have acknowledged, and he's the person who holds authority over the 7 great clans. No. It wouldn't be too much to say that he's a god," Xingxing said with an infatuated expression. Xing said with an infatuated expression. He has an influence that can topple the world, a wealth that can rival a country's, and he has already attained a breakthrough to the divine level. He also has the support of the 6 old ancestors. Isn't such a person a god? Who is a god? Audrey looked at Bai Di with a grim countenance. In her impression of a man with such disposition, such prestige, and such a man seemed to be on par with Xia. In fact, he did not seem to be that far off from Fang Xinjian. Moreover, the authority that Bai Di held in his hands was far too terrifying. His influence had taken root in the empire and extended to all walks of life. It was almost omnipresent. The people who had come today were merely a small group of people from the 7 great clans. Who knew if the various experts and leaders they would encounter outside would be from the 7 great clans? This would be far too terrifying. Yet, all of these great influences were now groveling under the feet of a single person. Bai Di. Several tens of minutes later, the Pantheon arc arrived in the sky above a stretch of endless snowy mountains. Several hundred meters away, there was a mountain that was stabbed into the ground in a slanted manner. It was like a huge sword that had been tossed down from the heavens. It was the divine sword peak. The flying ship had just come to a stop when a white-clothed disciple flew over and said, "Everyone, you must be the esteemed guests of the Tianmen clan, right?" Then, under the lead of the white-clothed disciple, everyone arrived at a cave. On a formation that was emitting fluorescent light, a light door suddenly opened up. Stepping through the light door, everyone arrived at a valley filled with birdsong and fragrant flowers from a range of mountains that were sealed in ice. After walking through the door, a portion of the people turned their gazes toward Shan He. However, after recognizing her identity, no one walked up to her. After all, the enraged lion and the head of the Tianmen clan had died in battle. The influence of the Tianmen clan was extremely weak, and Shan He was naturally not valued by anyone. After entering the manor, Elder O Bai shuddered and finally came back to his senses. Chapter 657. What's going on? What happened to me earlier? At the next moment, he saw Fang Xinjian, who was standing behind Shan He. Was he the one who did this? However, to him, Fang Xinjian's matter was just an insignificant matter. What he was most concerned about was the benefits that Bai Di had promised him. Therefore, he paid no heed to Fang Xinjian and quickly walked toward Bai Di, who was in the center of the crowd. Shan He looked at Fang Xinjian and asked, "Are you going to take action now?" Of course, Fang Xinjian did not take action immediately. He casually found a direction and sat down. His martial will darted through spatial gaps, and his infiltrating void sword intense scanned the entire place. After the celestial eradication sword formation had improved once again, the structure of his martial will had also changed once again. His heaven-connecting sword physique had become even more condensed, and the battle form of his martial will had also changed from the simple deathly sword intent to the infiltrating void sword intent, the light pursuit sword intent, the all-conquering sword intent, and the instant sword intent. The infiltrating void sword intents swept through the entire manor with extreme concealment and concealment. They silently swept through the entire manor and stored the information of the many nights conditions into Fang Xinjian's brain. Concurrently, 3 white bone short swords and 1 thunder calamity darted through spatial gaps, surrounding the entire manor and setting up the celestial eradication sword formation. From this moment onward, the entire manor had become a cage, allowing entry but not exit. Hearing Shan He's question, Fang Xinjian calmly scanned the entire place and said, "The people from the 6 great clans aren't all here yet, right? Let me know when they're all here. I can pack them up and pack them up together." Hearing his words, Elder Grand finally could not hold it in any longer and stepped forward saying, "Mister, please be careful with your words. Right now, the people here are all the authoritative characters from our 7 great clans. If you speak recklessly, you might bring trouble upon yourself. The young miss has gotten you here to help, not to get you into trouble. Shan He frowned and said, Elder Grand. It's fine. Fang Xinjian waved his hand and said, Do whatever you want, I'll make my move when everyone is here. Shan He nodded, but she was already pulled away by Elder Grand and the others. Elder Grand said, Young miss, let's go and meet with Lord Baidi first. Since we plan on joining the alliance of the clans, it's better for us to take the initiative to get in touch and fight for more benefit. Shan He shook her head at the few elders and sat down next to Fang Xinjian. She was not an idiot. After knowing that Fang Xinjian had killed 5 clan heads in a row, she had completely understood Fang Xinjian's strength. Moreover, since she had chosen Fang Xinjian, she should go all the way. Otherwise, if she were to waver on both sides, it would not be good. Seeing Shan He's actions, Elder Grand and the others were all infuriated. Elder Grand glared at the two of them and said, Miss, are you really going to listen to this guy? Did you hear what he was saying? He's arrogant and ignorant to the extreme. To think that you would even believe such words. Shan He carefully threw a glance at Fang Xinjian. Seeing that he had closed his eyes as if he was cultivating, she said, You guys can just sit here and watch the show. This time around, it's our Tianmen clan's turn to be in the limelight among the 7 great clans. Sigh, miss, you'll regret this. Elder Grand sat at the side, feeling indignant. He had already made up his mind that if Shan He and that guy were to have any evil ideas later on, he would have to stop them even if it meant that he would have to go against his superior. Elder Bai had already run off to meet Baidi. However, there were too many people waiting to interact with Baidi, and he only managed to squeeze his way in after waiting for several tens of minutes. The moment he saw Baidi, Elder Bai said agitatedly, Lord Baidi. Oh! Baidi paused for a moment, as if he had recalled who this person was. Tianmen clan's Elder Bai? He patted Elder Bai's shoulder and said, It's been hard on you this time around. Overwhelmed by the favor, Elder Bai said, No, it's nothing. This is what we should do. He then pointed to the direction behind him and said, Miss Shan He and the others have already arrived. This time around, the alliance between the 7 great clans will definitely be a major event that will go down in history. It's my honor to be able to participate in it. Baidi smiled, consoled Elder Bai and continued, Has Shan He arrived as well? Where is she? Elder Bai immediately said, She was just with me earlier. Lord Baidi, please wait for a moment. I'll go get her now. Baidi smiled toward the surroundings. I'm sorry, everyone. Then let us wait for Miss Shan He. Haha, it's only right. It's Shan He's first time here, young Master Meng said with a smile. Young Master Yi also said, It's just a small matter. Let Shan He come over first. However, Elder Bai had already run up to Shan He with a flash. He grabbed Shan He's hand and was about to rush over to where Baidi was when he realized that Shan He had no intention of getting up. He said anxiously, Miss, Baidi has summoned you. Let's go over quickly. Shan He did not reply but looked at Fang Xinjian. Fang Xinjian's eyes were still closed, as if he had lost all contact with the outside world. Therefore, Shan He replied, I'm not going. Bai glared and said furiously, Miss, what are you saying? Baidi, the 4 young masters, and many other experts are waiting for us over there. Shan He waved her hand and said, I'll be fine here. If you want to go, then go by yourself. Bai was furious, but he was unable to pull Shan He away. Just then, Baidi's follower, Uncle Ing, walked over and urged, What's going on? Why have you guys taken so long? Just as Bai was about to explain, Fang Xinjian finally opened his eyes. Sword light flowed in his eyes, as if they contained a world of swords. Is everyone here? He asked Shan He. Shan He nodded and said, Most of the upper echelon from the 6 great clans have arrived. Therefore, Fang Xinjian threw a nonchalant glance toward Uncle Ing and said, Your abilities are still passable. Are you one of the upper echelon from the 6 great clans? Uncle Ing frowned and said proudly, "I'm just a small follower of Lord Bai Di." He then looked toward Shan-He. "Miss Shan-He, everyone over there is waiting for you. Come with me quickly." However, Fang Shijian shook his head and said, "Let Bai Di come over. I have something to discuss with him regarding the 6 great clans." "What?" Uncle Ing was stunned for a moment, thinking that he had heard wrongly. Elder Grand, Elder Obai, and the other elders from the Tianmen clan also became nervous. They looked at Fang Xinjian with eyes spewing flames and quickly explained, "Mr. Ing, this person isn't from our Tianmen clan. He's spouting gibberish. Please ignore him." Uncle Ying's gaze gleamed with cold light as he strode toward Fang Xinjian. "Miss Shan-He, it's not that I'm not giving you face, but since this person dares to insult Lord Bai Di, I can't let him off no matter what. Otherwise, what would become of the Holy Light clan's several centuries of rules? What would become of the prestige of the 6 great clans? Young man, I'll teach you a good lesson today. I'll let you know what it means by strict rules and what it means by saying that a loose tongue can cause trouble." Fang Xinjian said calmly, "Why do weaklings need to fight?" With that, he tapped out with a finger, and the infiltrating void sword intent darted into Uncle Ying's body. The latter was infuriated and wanted to resist at the start. However, he immediately felt pain, then cried out agonizingly, followed by despair. Within a short period of time, his cultivation was completely crippled, and he dropped to his knees with a thud. He looked at Fang Xinjian with a gaze filled with hatred and fury. "Lord Bai Di won't let you off. Do you think that you can still leave after doing these things?" Elder Obai gasped and stood up, looking at Fang Xinjian furiously. "Be ****. Are you trying to get our Tianmen clan destroyed?" Elder Grand groaned in agony, looking at the crippled Uncle Ing with a terrified expression. The many elders from the other Tianmen clan were first astonished, and then their faces turned ashen. To think that Bai Di's subordinate had been crippled. No one dared to imagine how furious Bai Di would be. Chapter 658. Elder Obai was the first to react. He let out a furious bellow, and as his body flashed, over 1,000 streams of white light burst out from his body, taking the form of several thousand gods. He then punched out across space, and the several thousand gods also punched out. It was as if the gods were enraged and were sending down divine punishment. A myriad of thunderbolts and flames surged out toward Fang Xinjian. Elder Obai had attacked furiously, instantly using his full power. But how many experts were there? With the 7 great clans and countless other influences, there were over 100 second transition knights, and there were even over 10 demigods. Elder Obai's attack had attracted everyone's gazes. Thoughts flashed through everyone's minds at lightning speed. This is the Tianmen clan's pantheon sacred palm? What a domineering palm force! To use his will to imitate the powers of the gods, and to use his physical body as the existence of the heavenly court. This is the power of the Tianmen clan. This is Elder Obai from the Tianmen clan? Who is the young man he's attacking? Obai's abilities aren't bad. It seems that this young man is doomed, unless someone can save him. Many thoughts flashed through everyone's minds, and at the next moment, Fang Xinjian's foot had already stepped onto Elder Obai's chest without anyone noticing. Then the white light dissipated, and the thunderbolts and flames were extinguished like a candle being gently blown away. The force from Fang Xinjian's stomp had completely destroyed Obai's palm force. Simultaneously, amidst a loud boom, Obai was kicked to the ground, rolling to Uncle Ying's side. He knelt down on both knees, and his entire upper body fell limply onto the ground. Fang Xinjian kicked Obai back and said calmly, "You can kneel as well." Obai let out a furious bellow, only to discover that he could not even open his mouth. He exerted all his strength, wanting to stand up, but he discovered that waves of sword intents were suppressing him, forcing him to kneel together with Uncle Ing. At the sight of this scene, expressions of astonishment, curiosity, and anticipation flashed across everyone's faces. Elder Grand's gaze flickered. He felt that a great calamity was about to befall him, and he was completely stunned. Xingxing was also taken aback. She looked at the scene in a daze. Who is this kid? To think that he would dare to make a move here. He's finished now. The Holy Light Clan probably won't let him off. She heard a cry of surprise and turned to look at Audrey, only to find that Audrey was looking at Fang Xinjian in shock. Xingxing asked curiously, Audrey, you know him? On the other side, Emperor Bai and the rest looked over as well. But when they saw Fang Xinjian kicking Elder Bai to the ground, they did not make a move. It was as if they did not want to. Young Master Meng, who had a head of purple hair and looked both real and illusory, frowned when he saw Bai Di. He immediately stepped forward considerately, looked at Fang Xinjian and said, Who are you? How dare you make a move here? Do you want to become enemies with our 7 great families? Become enemies? Fang Xinjian glanced at him and said, In front of me, you don't even have the qualification to run away, how can you be my enemy? Young Master Meng was so infuriated that he started laughing. What an arrogant and ignorant person. Shan He, where did you find this clown? Shan He had not said a single word from the beginning to the end. She merely stood quietly behind Fang Xinjian, like an obedient maid. Everyone present was also very surprised by this, and they looked at Fang Xinjian with an amused gaze. For even Shan He to be so obedient, everyone present became curious about Fang Xinjian's identity. Who on earth is this person? To think that he dares to make a move here. He probably has some backing. What's the use of having backing? Right now, the people from the 7 great clans are all here. Lord Bai Di has attained the divine level, and the 6 old ancestors are already extremely powerful. No matter how great his backing is, it's impossible that he can go up against the 7 great clans, right? Audrey also looked at this scene in astonishment. Although there were some changes to Fang Xinjian's appearance, she could still vaguely tell that there were some parts of him that were familiar. Could he be Fang Xinjian? Why has Xinjian returned here? Why would he go up against the 7 great clans? This is bad. The 7 great clans are a secretive circle. Xinjian probably doesn't know that the 6 old ancestors have already attained the divine level. This is bad. At the thought of this, Audrey's face was filled with anxiety. She wanted to remind Fang Xinjian about the 7 great clans. Hearing young Master Meng's words, Shan He finally lifted her head, shook it, and said, Young Master Meng, you don't understand. Before Mr., it's meaningless even if the 7 great clans join forces. You should surrender quickly in case you regret it. Ha 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 ha. Hearing that, young Master Meng laughed maniacally, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Even if the 7 great clans join forces, it won't be enough? Do you think that he's Alexander or the Guardian King of the Holy See of Truth? Even if the Guardian King of the Holy See of Truth were to come today, he wouldn't be able to humiliate our 7 great clans. Lad, you've been in the limelight today. Next, you'll have to pay with your life. Before he finished his words, young Master Meng had already made his move. It was as if he had turned into a puff of green smoke, completely losing his physical form. A dreamlike and illusory state gushed out. In everyone's eyes, the sky seemed to have dimmed, the earth seemed to have distorted, and the entire world seemed to have become fragmented. The distance, the light, the darkness, the front, the back, and the back all seemed to be in conflict. It was as if everyone was deep in a dream. Subconsciously, everyone could not help but feel impressed by this move, secretly praising it. However, at the next moment, a foot descended from the sky. It was like the foot of a demon king from hell, tearing the world apart and shattering the dreamlike atmosphere. Young Master Meng let out an astonished cry and was about to retreat when he felt a strong gust of wind gushing toward him together with the other party's power. The wind pressure was so strong that it was as heavy as Mount Tai, pressing down on him to the point that he could not move at all. Divine light flashed, and several tens of beams of colorful light shot out. They were the various divine weapons that young Master Meng had brought along with him. However, before this foot, these divine weapons were like children's toys. Amidst loud explosions, they were crushed by the sword force across space. With a bang, the palm finally stomped down on young Master Meng's head. With a thud, young Master Meng was forced to his knees by the force from the sole of the foot. His knees created 2 small pits in the ground. However, this gush of power did not stop at all and continued to stomp down. Ah! Young Master Meng let out an enraged bellow, and the power of the 1024 specialty seeds in his body erupted crazily. Waves of fragrant aura rose up. However, even as his bones creaked and his muscles bled profusely, he still managed to hang on for less than 1,000th of a second before he fell to the ground once again. His head was stomped into the ground. Fang Xinjian stepped on young Master Meng's head with one foot and stepped on the ground with the other. He crossed his arms before his chest and looked at the 7 great clans. I am Fang Xinjian. In the next minute, those who kneel down will not have to die. Chapter 659. As Fang Xinjian stomped down on young Master Meng, everyone present was astonished. However, at the next moment, as Fang Xinjian announced his identity, everyone present was even more astonished. Fang Xinjian? So it's him? No wonder he dared to make a move. It's that Fang Xinjian who killed Xia and crippled the first prince? He's really audacious. Elder Grand's eyes were filled with understanding. So that's how it is. To think that it's Fang Xinjian. It's no wonder that Miss Shan he indulges him so much. However, at the next moment, a hint of hatred flashed in Elder Grand's eyes. But miss, you're up against the powers of the 6 great clans. The 6 old ancestors have long attained the divine level. Even if Fang Xinjian is able to go up against them, what will our Tianmen clan do? At this moment, Elder Grand only felt that Shan he was still too young to have made such a rash decision. Grand sighed inwardly. Young miss, do you know that you've brought our Tianmen clan into a vortex? After hearing Fang Xinjian's identity, everyone finally understood what he was relying on. For him to be able to kill the undying Xia, defeat the blue sacred moonlight, and cripple the first prince, it was true that he had the ability to dominate the world. However, right now, he was up against Bai Di, one of the 7 great clans. Xingxing shook her head. So it's Fang Xinjian. He's even more audacious than the rumors say. However, he's not up against the 2nd-tier divine-level expert Xia, the 2nd-tier divine-level expert Blue Sacred Moonlight, or the first prince. Instead, he's up against the 7 great clans, which are Bai Di and the 6th ancestor, who have been controlling countless influences in the empire for over 100 years. They are extremely wealthy and have great authority. What Xingxing said was also what many people present were thinking. To them, it was true that Fang Xinjian was very powerful. If any of them were to encounter him, they would probably have no choice but to lower their heads and give in. However, before the 7 great clans which had been operating for several centuries and the 6 old ancestors who had attained the divine level with their boundless remarkable powers, Fang Xinjian appeared to be a little weak. Not to mention, the other party had already made the Empire's royal family wary of him. How could he dare to provoke another enemy? I understand now. It's probably because Fang Xinjian doesn't know that the 6 old ancestors have already advanced to the divine level, right? Haha, I wonder how Fang Xinjian would feel if he were to know that there are 7 divine level experts behind the 7 great clans. He will probably regret it to death. He has already offended the royal family, and now he even dares to provoke the 7 great clans. No matter how much of a genius he is, if he doesn't know when to stop, he won't be able to live for long. Everyone looked at Fang Xinjian as if they were watching a good show, as if they were waiting for him to find out the truth. As for what Fang Xinjian said about kneeling down and not dying, they didn't take it to heart at all. The great beauty standing behind Bai Di thought the same as well. She looked at Fang Xinjian and shook her head. It's a pity that you managed to barge your way in today. If it were any other time, you would still have a way out. However, the 7 great clans are gathered here today, and you won't be able to leave so easily. Amongst the 4 gentlemen, young Master Yi had the best relationship with young Master Meng. Seeing that his good friend was being trampled under Fang Xinjian's feet, fury flashed in his eyes. He was the first to step out and say, "Fang Xinjian, you probably still don't understand what kind of opponent you've offended, right? Our 7 great clans have developed for several centuries, and our accumulations far surpass your imagination. Right now, the 6 old ancestors have all advanced to the divine level, and Lord Bai Di has also stepped into Tier 1 of the divine level. Before the 7 divine level experts, even the Empire's royal family won't be able to humiliate us. To think that you dare to humiliate our clans here today. You really don't know what's good for you." Young Master Yi knew that he was not Fang Xinjian's match at all. Therefore, he did not plan on making a move. Instead, he spoke frankly with assurance, each of his words hitting the nail on the head. "Fang Xinjian, if you don't wish to become enemies with our 7 great clans that have been around for 100 years, and if you don't wish to offend our 7 divine-level experts, then surrender and apologize. Only then will you have a chance to live." Hearing young Master Ye's words, everyone present laughed. They looked at Fang Xinjian as if they were looking at a clown who had walked into the wrong place. They were waiting to see Fang Xinjian's astonished and dazed gaze. However, Fang Xinjian did not show any signs of surprise. Instead, he looked at young Master Yi as if he was looking at a fool. Then he exhaled like a sword and exhaled. Trash! Bang! A stream of white light shot out, releasing a loud sound as if several 10,000 bolts of lightning had swept across in void space. Young Master Yi was sent flying as if he had been electrocuted. He knocked through 12 small buildings in an instant, bringing up a great amount of dust as he flew out. Then with a loud boom, he collided into a wall, and the lower half of his body was smashed into a pool of mud. "How dare you!" When Bai Di saw that Fang Xinjian had made his move, he already knew that the situation was bad. However, just as he was about to make a move, the sword cheese that Fang Xinjian had shot out flickered in and out of existence, darting through spatial gaps. He had a feeling that he was unable to grasp it. In this moment of hesitation, young Master Yi was already half paralyzed from the beating, and he was slowly squirming as he regenerated. As white sacred light extended out, Bai Di's martial will shot out amidst the sacred light. "Fang Xinjian, how dare you! I didn't want to make an enemy out of you, but to think that you don't know what's good for you, offending our 7 great clans time and time again. You're really courting death. Do you really think that we're not a match for you? From today onward, our 7 great clans, the 7 divine-level experts, will fight to the death with you." As Bai Di's martial will extended out like sacred light, there was a scorching feeling in the air. Being encompassed by the sacred light, everyone felt ashamed of their inferiority and had the thought of committing suicide to atone for their sins. What a powerful judgment divine light! It's said that under the illumination of this judgment divine light, it can make one's guilt reach an extreme. When trained to an extreme, one can force one to commit suicide with just a gaze. Streams of white light burst out, accompanied by the loud and clear sounds of hymns and music. Waves of epic feeling that came from the primordial universe and ancient humans gushed out. Everyone seemed to have seen the heroic spirit of generations of humans sacrificing themselves to save humanity and the world. A feeling of joining in and sacrificing themselves, a feeling of guilt and remorse toward what they had done in the past gradually gushed into their hearts. It was the Holy Light Clan's ultimate martial technique, the judgment divine light. It was an extremely powerful martial technique with the concept of sacrificing all lives to save the world. It was an unrivaled secret art that attacked the heart. The beautiful lady stood behind Bai Di, watching as he floated up like a god and stepped on void space, sending out a myriad of light rays. Great waves of astonishment surged in her heart. Bai Di's strength has increased again. I remember that his judgment divine light wasn't this powerful the last time. To think that even I have the thought of sacrificing my life like a moth flying into a flame. Despite this, Fang Xinjian is still an expert who has killed a Tier 2 divine level expert after all. Bai Di is probably still a little lacking. However, at the next moment, everyone understood what Bai Di was relying on. Streams of light pillars rose up within a range of several lis. Bai Di knew how powerful Fang Xinjian was and thus activated the Great Mountain Protection Formation the moment he made his move. Under the reinforcement of the formation, he was completely encompassed by white light. His aura kept on rising, and endless power gushed out from his limbs and bones. Within a range of several lis, the power of sunlight that had been accumulated for several centuries was now gathered on Bai Di's body. How terrifying would the prowess of several hundred years' worth of sunlight be unleashed in a single second? It was the equivalent of unleashing the power of sunlight that was several billion times that of the entire valleys in a single second. Or perhaps it was equivalent to condensing and unleashing all the sunlight in the entire sky at this moment. With such terrifying power, even the space seemed to tremble, as if it was melting. It was only then that everyone reacted. That's right, there's still the Holy Light Clan's Great Mountain Protection Formation. This formation has accumulated power for countless years. Even Fang Xinjian won't be able to break through it easily. This is the Holy Light Clan's accumulation. Bai Di walked toward Fang Xinjian one step at a time. His body did not change at all, but it was as if he was holding up the heavens and holding up the earth. On the contrary, Fang Xinjian appeared increasingly insignificant. It was as if he was a vile person who had gathered all the malicious intents in the world. Bai Di said coldly, "Fang Xinjian, this heavenly formation has never been activated in the 300 years since it was set up. Moreover, it only has the power for one attack. The wealth that has been expended over the past 300 years is enough to buy the entire northern ice region. It was originally prepared for the experts of the Mage Association or the Holy Sea of Truth. Now that you've died under this formation, you can be proud." Chapter 660. Everyone had the misconception that Bai Di should kill this despicable person immediately. Many thoughts flashed past before everyone's eyes at lightning speed, but the passing of time in the real world was still very fast. Bai Di emitted sacred light all over his body and appeared before Fang Xinjian, slapping down with his palm. He brought with him the conviction of atonement, sacrifice, and salvation. Under the reinforcement of the protective formation, the power that Bai Di unleashed right now was one that could destroy the world. Violent powers came gushing down, and the white light was distorted into a lump of light. It was condensed to the point that it seemed material, pressing down toward Fang Xinjian. It was as if an entire sun had been thrown at Fang Xinjian. Amidst the layers of white light, physical particles started to seethe, releasing millions and millions of explosions at every moment. However, they were locked down firmly by the distorted space and gathered toward Fang Xinjian. Faced with this palm that came descending from the sky, which represented salvation and contained the power of the sun, Fang Xinjian let out a cold snort and reached out his claw explosively toward Bai Di. Each of the fingers on the huge claw seemed to contain a sword intent. They reached out as if they were tearing the world apart, tearing the light of judgment into pieces. Then bang 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 bang! Explosive sounds rang out, and Fang Xinjian's physical body collapsed and then reassembled. His physical body turned into a giant with a height of several hundred meters under the transformation of his martial will, and he grabbed Bai Di. What? Bai Di was unable to break through the white light that burst out from his body. What astonished him the most was that the attack that he had used to activate the formation and condense all his powers had been easily broken by Fang Xingjian. At the next moment, the formation continued to attack. A myriad of light pillars shot out explosively, piercing through the sky and shooting toward Fang Xingjian's body. Although this formation did not have the support of the gates of heaven, it had stored and gathered a tremendous amount of sunlight's power within a range of several lis. After several hundred years of accumulation, its prowess far surpassed that of the formation on the tropical island that had the gates of heaven. However, how much stronger was the current Fang Xingjian? In the face of the white light that filled the sky, he directly stomped on the ground and roared again. He was like a mad ancient Tyrannosaurus Rex. As he roared, layers of sound waves surged out, causing the space to distort as they radiated outwards. Surging waves of air swept out from the ground under his foot. With just a stomp and a roar, everything within 100 miles exploded. The entire valley was in ruins, and the manor was sent flying. The 10,000 pillars of light were shattered, and the grand spell formation was shattered with this roar. Bai Di's body was shattered into pieces, turning into a white light that gathered in Fang Xingjian's palm. He exclaimed, "Fang Xingjian, the 6 old ancestors will not let you off. Let me go?" Fang Xingjian clenched his palm with a paw, crushing Bai Di into a lump of meat paste. Then he tossed him out with a boom. Bai Di was crushed into a pile of minced meat and smashed into the ground. It was as if a meteor had crashed into the ground, creating a huge crater and stirring up a great amount of dust. He twisted and struggled to regenerate. "Jacob and the other 5 have been seriously injured and killed by me. If he dares to come out today, I'll take the opportunity to strip the Panwu heavenly raiment from his body." On the ground, the houses were destroyed. However, everyone present was an expert. They all retreated and dodged, and none of them died. Uncle Ing, Obai, and young Master Meng, who were kneeling down, were encompassed by Fang Xingjian's sword intense and were unscathed. As the infiltrating void sword intense radiated out, Fang Xingjian's words and the scene of the 6 clan heads being killed and seriously injured were transmitted into everyone's minds in the blink of an eye. If Fang Xingjian were to release this scene from his memories, the people present would probably not believe it so easily. They might even suspect that Fang Xingjian had casually framed them to deceive them. However, now that Fang Xingjian had crushed all of them, casually smashing Bai Di into minced meat and bringing along an astonishing aura, no one dared to doubt him anymore. Fang Xingjian. Amidst his bellows, Bai Di once again regenerated his physical body. He soared up into the sky, as if he was going to fight once again. However, before he could fly out 3 meters, Fang Xingjian's huge foot had already stomped down. As this stomp came crashing down, many cracks that were several kilometers long extended out in all directions with the sole of his foot as the center. After crushing Bai Di into minced meat once again, Fang Xingjian said coldly, "You guys still have 52 seconds. A violent aura engulfed the entire valley, and the astonishing prowess continued to reverberate in everyone's hearts. The scene of Fang Xingjian flattening the Holy Light clan with 1 foot, killing the 5 clan heads with 5 sword attacks, dealing Jacob with serious injuries, and going up against Alexander continued to reverberate in their minds. Everyone seemed to have just recalled what Fang Xingjian had said, "Those who knelt would not die." With a thud, Elder Grand was the first to drop to his knees. I was wrong. It's Miss Shan He who has good judgment. Fang Xingjian has really appeared out of nowhere. There's probably no one in the entire empire who will be able to stop him in the future." Following that, thud sounds rang out incessantly, and the people from the great clans knelt down one after another. Young Master Lei bellowed furiously, "Are you guys crazy? To think that you guys would believe the nonsense that Fang Xinjian spouted. Stand up. All of you, stand up. Young Master Lei walked over and pulled them up time and time again. However, those people paid him no heed, all of them rushing to kneel down. Right now, in their eyes, Fang Xinjian was a living legend, a true legend. Xingxing'er looked at this scene in a daze. Looking at Fang Xinjian, who was standing between the heavens and the earth, her mouth was agape from the beginning to the end, unable to close it. To think that even the 6 old ancestors were defeated? Even Bai Di couldn't withstand a single blow. How powerful is this Fang Xinjian? Finally, her legs went limp, and she knelt down as well. Simultaneously, she looked toward Audrey and said with a bitter smile, "Audrey, I wanted to get you to join us, but you're already being protected by Fang Xinjian. This time around, it's true that I've been too rash." Audrey shook her head and did not say a word. She merely looked at Fang Xinjian with a complicated expression. Right now, in her eyes, Fang Xinjian was crushing Bai Di and slaying the 7 great clans with his sword. He was simply too cool. The beautiful lady who had been standing behind Bai Di was also wearing a dejected expression. She had not expected such a thing to happen. Bai Di. To think that Bai Di has failed? How is this possible? To think that Fang Xinjian has defeated the 6 old ancestors? How is this possible? However, Fang Xinjian did not even look at these people who were kneeling down. His infiltrating void sword intense continued to radiate out toward the surrounding valleys. Simultaneously, he let out a bellow, bringing up great waves of clouds and tearing apart a stretch of blue sky. "Jacob, scram out here. If you still don't come out, I'm going to trample your precious successor to death completely." Bai Di struggled crazily under Fang Xinjian's feet. However, wrapped up by layers of sword cheese, he was unable to move at all. He was being trampled on tightly, and at this moment, endless feelings of humiliation surged in his mind. Just then, a series of sand and pebbles were suddenly sent flying. 6 figures descended from the sky, and Jacob's will came gushing over. "Fang Xinjian, you asked for this." Chapter 661. Holy Light, Dark Shadow, Night Massacre, Fervent Dragon, Thunder King, and Dream. The figures of the heads of the 6 great clans appeared in the sky, and their materialized martial wills descended from the sky. When they landed on the ground, large amounts of dust splattered. Powers continued to press against each other in the atmosphere. Mountains shattered, cloud layers shattered, and all sorts of rocks and debris were pushed up into the air. The figures of the 6 clan heads drew out long shadows under the sunlight. Each of them exuded terrifying auras that were as vast as the mountains and seas. They were like roaring volcanoes, seething tsunamis, and raging earthquakes. Power. Endless power gushed out from the bodies of the 6 of them. There was even a hint of diabolic energy within them. Clearly, the 6 of them had gained a lot from comprehending black magic over the past 2 days. Each of their abilities had improved tremendously. Seeing the appearance of the 6 clan heads, the people from the 6 great clans all revealed surprised expressions. "It's Jacob and the others. The 6 old ancestors are back. Haha, does this mean that they didn't die? To think that Fang Xinjian dared to deceive us." Young Master Yi and Young Master Meng, who had been half kneeling on the ground, stood up with the help of Young Master Lei and Young Master Long. They looked at the 6 old ancestors in the sky and Fang Xinjian, who was standing on the ground, with gleeful expressions. "Fang Xinjian, to think that you dare to offend the dignity of our 6 great clans. You're dead meat this time around." It was not just the 4 young masters. Many other people who had been kneeling on the ground stood up as well. When the 6 old ancestors descended, the waves of auras that were like mountains and seas that blotted out the sky were far too terrifying. The martial wills of the 6 divine-level experts filled up every inch of space within a range of 100 lis like water, causing one to feel a sense of despair, as if they were unable to put up any resistance at all. The eyes of the beautiful lady who had been standing behind by D flashed, and hope burned in her eyes. That's right. How can the 6 old ancestors be killed by Fang Xinjian so easily? We've all been deceived by him. Her breathing quickened as she looked at the 6 majestic voices in the sky and said softly, "As long as the 6 old ancestors are still around, it's impossible for the 6 great clans to be wiped out. Even Fang Xinjian will have to give in." Xingxing also looked at the sky in astonishment. To think that the 6 old ancestors aren't dead? Fang Xinjian lied to us? She suddenly felt a chill run down her spine, as though the eyes of the 6 great patriarchs had swept over her. Damn it, I just surrendered. Will the 6 great ancestors blame me wrongly after this? Thinking of this, Xingxing broke out in cold sweat, and she jumped up abruptly. Such a thing had happened to most of the people present. Even Shan He revealed an astonished expression. The 6 patriarchs are not dead? Not only did they not die, but from the looks of it, their skills have increased greatly, and their strength has reached a whole new level? Her pair of beautiful eyes seemed to be on fire. Fang Xinjian, you lied to me? Under Fang Xinjian's feet, which was several hundred meters tall, Bai Di laughed out loud. Fang Xinjian, the 6 old ancestors have arrived. Why aren't you surrendering? Do you think that you can deceive us with your little tricks? Subduing the 6 great clans? With a smacking sound, as Fang Xinjian ground down his feet, Emperor Bai was once again squashed into a pile of meat paste. He let out all sorts of incomprehensible howls and cries. Be ****, how dare you? With this action from Fang Xinjian, the head of the Holy Light clan, Jacob, was enraged. He slapped down with his palm, and the sky suddenly darkened. A pillar of light descended from the sky, encompassing toward Fang Xinjian. This pillar of judgment divine light clearly had the demeanor of the gates of heaven formation back at the tropical island. For a casual attack from Jacob to have such an effect, it was clear that his powers had increased tremendously. As he made his move, the other 5 clan heads also let out explosive bellows in unison, and 5 gushes of martial will gathered toward the judgment divine light. The entire pillar of divine light was as white as milk, plunging down like a light sword piercing into the ground. The ground shattered, as if it had been slashed into a canyon. To begin with, they had only wanted to use a single move against Fang Xinjian. They did not hope that Fang Xinjian would be defeated, but they wanted to be able to deal a blow to Fang Xinjian's prestige, push him back, and save Bai Di. However, they did not know that Fang Xinjian did not care about this judgment divine light that the 6 of them had joined forces with. He was bathed in the white light, receiving hundreds of millions of attacks at every moment, yet he remained unscathed. Let's disperse. As he spoke, Fang Xinjian punched toward the sky, and the light pursuit sword intent swept out. The judgment divine light shattered inch by inch, and the white light surged out. The sky turned from darkness to light. After breaking through the joint forces of the 6 with a single punch, Fang Xinjian leaped abruptly and dashed toward the 6 clan heads. Excellent. The 5 of you were created by Alexander, right? Then I'll kill you all once more. At the 2nd tier of the divine level, one's martial will and flesh and blood could be interchanged. Right now, Fang Xinjian had transformed his martial will into a huge body. His huge body, which was several hundred meters tall, was like a tall mountain. As he leaped up, the earth trembled violently, and the ground was torn apart. The surrounding valleys shattered and collapsed, as if a magnitude 10 earthquake had occurred. The even more terrifying thing was that his huge body, which was several hundred meters tall, had transcended the speed of sound and charged toward the 6 clan heads. How terrifying was the prowess of having a physical body that was several hundred meters tall surpass the speed of sound. It was as if a meteor that could destroy the world had landed. Before he arrived, violent air currents had already smashed onto the bodies of the 6 clan heads like the fists of several thousand conferred knights. Ah! Amidst an astonished cry, Fang Xinjian slapped his hand onto the Dark Shadow clan's head, and the latter exploded into a pool of blood. Fang Xinjian then struck out across space, and an atmospheric dragon tore through void space, tearing the Night Massacre clan's head into dust. Fang Xinjian then let out an enraged bellow, and as the sound waves swept out, another 3 clan heads were turned into minced meat. In the blink of an eye, the 5 clan heads were beaten half to death. This was especially the case with the explosive bellow at the end. The world trembled, and countless people fell down while foaming at the mouth. Looking at Fang Xinjian, who was in the sky, there were only 3 words that kept on echoing in the minds of everyone present. Tianmen clan's elder grand wore a dazed expression as he said, "Impressive ferocity! Impressive ferocity! This Fang Xinjian is really an unrivaled ferocious person." However, for the 6 old ancestors to dare to come this time around, it was clear that they had made preparations. Although 5 of their physical bodies had been destroyed at one go, Jacob was still unfazed. Streams of intense holy light kept on emitting from his body. "Fang Xinjian, do you think that you've won for sure? We'll let you witness our true power now." As Jacob said this, 6 lumps of light suddenly appeared. Each of them encompassed a portion of the Panwu heavenly raiment's powers. Then under everyone's gaze, they collided together with a bang. "I'll form the head. I'll form the torso. I'll form the arms. I'll form the right leg. I'll form the left leg." As waves of martial will were displayed, the Panwu heavenly raiment once again formed together. The Panwu heavenly raiment's will had been completely wiped out, and right now, the 6 old ancestors had completely grasped the Panwu heavenly raiment's powers. When they were unleashed explosively at this moment, they were clearly comparable to a Tier 4 divine level expert. A figure in golden armor that was 1,000 meters tall stood in the clouds, looking at Fang Xinjian as if he was looking at a child. Then he smacked out a punch toward Fang Xinjian. Die. Chapter 662. The Panwu heavenly raiment in the hands of the 6 clan heads had been restored by the Gold Mage King using Gold Faction black magic. Not only had the will in it been wiped out, but its power had also been restored to its peak. Although this divine armor was not comparable to the Hell's White Bone armor, the Hell's White Bone armor could only be used for defense. However, this Panwu heavenly raiment contained the Mountainous Sea Dynasty's conjecture of Pangu's martial prowess and possessed an extremely powerful offensive prowess. Back then, when Fang Xinjian was dealing with the Hell's White Bone armor, he could only rely on the power of the Hades Vault's self-destruction. What would happen to this Panwu heavenly raiment, which was slightly weaker than the Hell's White Bone armor? The 1,000-meter-tall golden-armored deity smashed down with a punch, and a huge shadow almost covered up a small part of the valley. As strong gales blew, countless experts were sent flying. So big. To think that the martial will can be transformed into such a massive figure? It's not the power of the 6 clan heads but the power of that divine armor. However, this is already sufficiently terrifying. The size of the physical body that the martial will can transform into represents how great its power is. From the 2nd tier of the divine level onward, the martial will that contained endless possibilities could start transforming into a physical body. The stronger the power of the martial will, the larger the physical body it could transform into. At this stage, it could be said that the larger the growth of the physical body, the greater the power. The Western land's legendary god of creation, Pangu, had boundless power, and his body was even larger than the entire Western land. That was an unimaginable power. The Panwu heavenly raiment was a creation that the Mountainous Sea Dynasty had created after studying the mysteries of Pangu. Now that its power was realized, it immediately created this 1,000-meter-tall golden-armored deity. By the looks of it, Fang Xinjian's body, which was several hundred meters tall, was not even half the size of the golden-armored deity. The difference in their power seemed to be very obvious. Where did this divine armor come from? What terrifying power! With the 6 clan heads joining forces, how powerful are they now? Tier 3 or 4 of the divine level. Tier 5? Just as many thoughts flashed through everyone's minds, the golden-armored deity's fist, which was like a small hill, had already smashed down before Fang Xinjian. His entire arm was filled with distorted space, and his fist was only left with balls of blurry golden light. Under the layers of distorted light, it was impossible to see what was inside. This punch was so ferocious that it could send an entire city flying in a single breath. Now, it was continuously unleashed without holding back, and it was even condensed into a ball under the distortion of space. Faced with this punch, Fang Xinjian did not dodge at all. He tapped out with his sword fingers consecutively, sending out streams of all-conquering sword attacks. The terrifying sword intent seemed to have come to life as it cut through the distorted space and slashed downward. Amidst the crisp, crackling sounds, large patches of sparks shot out from the arms of the golden-armored deity, as if meteors were streaking across the surface of his body. Under the continuous slashes of the all-conquering sword intent, after streams of brilliant sparks, blood splattered all over the sky, directly slashing the golden-armored deity until he was covered in blood. Large amounts of blood burst out, and the wounds were so deep that bones could be seen. In the end, the entire arm was only connected by a bit of skin and flesh. Blood clots fell onto the ground, and each clump was like a heavy truck, smashing out many huge pits in the ground. Even a single drop of blood that fell would be like a shot put, hitting the ground with loud banging sounds. However, faced with such serious injuries, the golden-armored deity was unable to stop his actions at all. As he continued to slash, his entire fist smashed onto Fang Xinjian's body with a loud boom. Then the fist, which was like a heavenly pillar, smashed onto Fang Xinjian's body and smashed onto the ground without stopping at all. Boom! Violent shock waves radiated out in all directions from the point where Fang Xinjian had come into contact with the ground. Seething smoke and dust shot out like many huge dragons. With a single punch, the world fell apart. This was the result of most of the power being condensed together, with less than 1/10,000th of the power being unleashed. With a boom, Fang Xinjian's body completely exploded, turning into a pool of blood. Large chunks of his body could be seen struggling and twisting as if wanting to be reborn. The golden-armored deity laughed. "Fang Xinjian, it's over for you." With that, he smashed down with his fist once again, and Fang Xinjian's flesh and blood were smashed into a myriad of bloody foams. Boom, 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 boom. Loud booms rang out incessantly, and each time, the ground would tremble and the mountains and rivers would shatter. Everyone looked at this scene in astonishment, as if they were stunned by the power of the golden-armored deity. Audrey covered her mouth and said in disbelief, "How could this be?" Xingxing Er's face was filled with astonishment. Strong, too strong. The powers of the 6 old ancestors are really unfathomable. In the ruins in the distance, Shanhe's face was filled with despair, as if she was unable to accept the outcome. Elder Grand dashed over rapidly, grabbed Shanhe's arm, and was about to escape. "Young miss, leave quickly. After Fang Xinjian is beaten to death, the 6 old ancestors will probably come looking for us." Shanhe shook her head, and the despair in her eyes grew even more intense. "Escape? Escape to where? The 6 old ancestors are extremely powerful. Who will be able to fend them off? Who will be able to protect us? The world is so big, and there's no longer anywhere for us to go." With that, she collapsed onto the ground, her eyes filled with a dazed look. At the moment they stopped, young Master Lei, young Master Yi, young Master Long, and young Master Meng all came over, looking at Shan He with ridicule. Shan He, you really have a good eye. Do you think that Fang Shijian is really reliable? There's no need to say much to them. Let's just listen to the 6 old ancestors' instructions later on. In the distance, Bai Di stood up with a pale countenance, trembling all over. The beautiful lady supported him, feeling the continuous tremors from the ground. She looked at the 1,000-meter-tall golden-armored deity, and said in astonishment, "What divine armor is this? What great power! This is the Panwu heavenly raiment that Master and Adoptive Father have been preparing to subdue for the past 3 years. It contains the supreme power of the Western Land's Mountainous Sea dynasty." Bai Di looked at the physical body that had been smashed into smithereens by Fang Xinjian and said with a cold smile, "Faced with such power, even 10 Fang Xinjian and you wouldn't be able to fend them off. This is also the true trump card of our 6 great clans." However, at the next moment, a huge shadow descended from the sky. It was unknown when it had started, but the entire valley, or rather, the snowy mountains in the surroundings, had been covered up by that endless shadow. "Little bug, have you had enough?" The golden-armored deity came to a stop and lifted his head. The endless black shadow filled up the entire sky, and he could not see what it was. It was far too big. "What is it?" It took the patriarchs a full second to regroup and shrink the black shadows in their sea of consciousness. Only then did they realize what they were seeing. It was Fang Xinjian's massive body, which had a height of over 100,000 meters, sitting cross-legged in void space. Fang Xinjian was also under the same shadow, with one hand supporting his chin and the other placed on his knee. Fang Xinjian was looking at the golden-armored deity, as if he was looking at an ant. How is this possible? The golden-armored deity turned his head and saw that the rotten flesh he had smashed had gradually turned into Jacob's appearance. Chapter 663. Is it fun? Fang Xinjian's voice rang out as if it had come from beyond the heavens. Disbelief, doubt, and disbelief flashed in the eyes of the 6 clan heads. These were then followed by bottomless despair. They did not understand at the start. They did not understand how Fang Xinjian had managed to change himself back into Jacob's body. However, when they saw the massive figure before them once again, they finally understood. The size of the physical body that the will had transformed into represented the strength of the martial will. How powerful was Fang Xinjian's strength for him to be able to transform into such a massive physical body. With such a powerful physical body, it had shrouded their senses, and it had been too easy for him to capture Jacob without them realizing it. This was not some technique. It was just a stark difference in strength. Just as the 6 old ancestors were pondering, Fang Xinjian's fingertips stretched out, and 2 fingers that were several thousand meters long pressed out. Each of his fingers had the power to instantly flatten a city. It was as if 2 huge dragons had descended from the sky, bringing about air currents that swept out in all directions and flattened the sky. There was not a single cloud in sight. Powers seethed, and the space was like ripples. The golden-armored deity bellowed furiously and punched out, but it was meaningless. He was like a fly that was pinched between 2 of Fang Xinjian's fingers, pinching him lightly. Fang Xinjian then exerted a little force with his thumb and index finger, and with an explosive bang, the golden-armored deity that the Panwu heavenly raiment had transformed into was crushed into minced meat. The golden armor shattered and shrunk back to its original size, spinning as it flew toward Fang Xinjian's palm. As for the 5 clan heads who had been seriously injured by Fang Xinjian's finger, their martial wills had just reassembled and appeared in the atmosphere when Fang Xinjian opened his mouth and exhaled. With a single exhale, strong gales exploded, and the 5 clan heads' martial wills were shattered into specks of starlight, scattering in the sky. After doing all these, a hint of indifference flashed in Fang Xinjian's eyes. He lifted his head and looked toward the sky. His eyes were hazy, and it was as if the entire universe and the world's circulation were flashing in them. Of course, Fang Xinjian's 100,000-meter-tall physical body was not transformed purely from his own martial will. Although his martial will was at 1,150 points, it was impossible for his physical body, which was equivalent to 1,150 points in strength, agility, reaction, endurance, and flexibility, to reach a size of 100,000 meters. After the celestial eradication sword formation had improved once again, he had been able to make further use of the celestial eradication sword formation, which was why he was able to do what he was doing now. At this moment, Fang Xinjian's entire being seemed to be immersed in this boundless power. He felt as though every breath he took would cause a violent gust of wind, causing the weather to change. Every heartbeat caused the blood in his body to surge, causing the earth to tremble and the veins of the earth to change. His every movement and every change had a huge impact on the entire world. It was as if he had become a world of his own. Just like that, Fang Xinjian was immersed in this unprecedented realm, immersed in the mysteries of the body and the will. At this moment, Fang Xinjian seemed to have a deeper comprehension of the concept of reforging his physical body and merging his will into one in the future. When one's power reached such a level, every minute change would affect the world, and one would have an irreversible connection with the entire world. Fang Xinjian did not pay any attention to the people on the ground. However, everyone on the ground was already in an unprecedented state of astonishment. This was especially so for Jacob, the head of the Holy Light clan. He stared at the figure in the sky, whose end could not be seen, and his mind was almost completely blank. At the next moment, his physical body was completely reborn, and his thoughts seemed to have returned to his physical body. How can this be? Where's Alexander? Why isn't he rushing over to protect us? Jacob's body trembled. That's not right. He has the sudden inspiration and should be able to sense Fang Xinjian's actions. Why isn't he coming over? Unless something is holding him back. Or... His pupils contracted abruptly as he thought of a terrifying possibility. Unless... He's also no longer a match for Fang Xinjian. He sensed this possibility with his sudden inspiration, and that's why he isn't coming over? The four aristocratic young masters were still surrounding Shan He. However, no one was still mocking or ridiculing Shan He. Shan He laughed out loud. The four of you, how are things now? Grand, who was standing at the side, had an expression of rejoicing. Then, he was deeply astonished by Fang Xinjian's terrifying power. At the sight of this scene, a surge of hot blood filled his brain. He thought of how the Tianmen clan would probably be the number one amongst the 7 great clans from now on. Young Master Meng trembled all over. Suddenly, he saw young Master Yi crawling toward the ground slowly and shouted, "What are you doing?" Young Master Yi had smashed his face into the ground and prostrated himself on all fours. It was as if he was prostrating on the ground. Hearing young Master Meng's words, he said calmly, "I only want to survive." Young Master Yi was just about to curse out furiously when young Master Lei and young Master Long also slowly knelt down. There was no longer any hint of resistance in their eyes. Young Master Ye's face turned pale, and he heard young Master Lei say, "Don't force yourself. Fang Xinjian is extremely powerful. If we continue to persist, we'll just be sending ourselves to our death." Young Master Meng's face turned pale, and he clenched his teeth tightly as if he was going to break them. He slowly knelt down, completely giving up on resisting. As the 4 young masters knelt down, more and more people followed suit. Xingxing let out a breath, wearing a complicated expression. Like everyone else, she had not expected that there would be so many twists and turns today. In the end, Fang Xinjian had even displayed such invincible prowess. Audrey also let out a breath. Looking at how Fang Xinjian had covered up the sky and the sun, as well as the endless shadow in the sky, there was only astonishment left in her eyes. With such martial arts and remarkable abilities, Fang Xinjian has truly stepped into the pinnacle and become a top-notch character in the world. However, just as everyone was kneeling on the ground, revealing expressions of submission, Baidi's eyes were still filled with indignation. "What are you guys doing?" Baidi bellowed furiously. "Are you guys really going to surrender? Are you guys going to lose the several centuries of glory that our 7 great clans have enjoyed just like that? It's true that Fang Xinjian is very powerful, but this world isn't something that he can do whatever he wants. If he has the guts, then kill us today. Otherwise, the Holy See of Truth, the Mage Association, and that great emperor from the Steel Lion Kingdom would be able to kill him with a single slap. Rather than submitting to Fang Xinjian, I might as well submit to." The beautiful lady beside him looked at Baidi's distorted face. Her eyes were bloodshot and she slowly retreated. She knew that Baidi had been driven mad by the scene before him. It was as if he had fallen from the clouds into a quagmire. His countless years of hard work and preparation had all gone to waste. Moreover, the terrifying power that Fang Xinjian had displayed made it impossible for him to have the slightest interest in catching up. He seemed to be unable to take such a huge blow, and had completely lost his mind. Fram. In the next moment, Fang Xinjian's gaze swept across, and Baidi had already turned into dust with a loud thud, dissipating from the world. After killing Baidi with a single blow, everyone present seemed to be trembling in fear. Immediately after, his gaze shrouded Jacob, and Fang Xinjian's voice reverberated in the world. "Jacob, do you submit?" Jacob's lips quivered. Without saying a single word, his legs turned to jelly, and he knelt on the ground. "From today onwards, the 7 great clans will pledge their loyalty to you, sir. Immeasurable magic, immeasurable magic." At this moment, only these 4 words were reverberating in everyone's minds. Chapter 664. With Jacob's kneeling, it meant that all 7 great clans had submitted to Fang Xinjian. However, the people who had come to the north this time around and entered the depths of the mountains were basically all core members of the 7 great clans. After they submitted, they basically represented the 7 great clans' submission. Of course, the news of Fang Xinjian suppressing the 7 great clans was only circulated within the small circle of the upper echelon of the great clans. The news that Fang Xinjian was most well known in the world was still that he had killed the undying Xia, defeated the blue sacred moonlight, and crippled the first prince. Although he was very famous, he was still not unrivaled. However, to Fang Xinjian, these were no longer important. After subduing the 7 great clans, he temporarily stayed in the snowy mountains and ordered the 7 great clans to send over their martial legacies. He wanted to master all of these martial arts and complete the refinement of his physical body for the 2nd tier of the divine level. Concurrently, the Panwu heavenly raiment was also sent back to the Great Western region by Fang Xinjian. He handed it over to Wang Xiaoyan and Fang Qian to forge the next divine level longsword for him. It could be foreseen that with the prowess of the Panwu heavenly raiment, this longsword that was a divine remains equipment would definitely be extremely powerful. 7 days and 7 nights later, at the peak of the snowy mountains, Fang Xinjian floated 10,000 lis high up in the sky, looking at the seething clouds and drifting snow. Countless manuals kept on surging in his mind. Many methods to recultivate the physical body, to become one with the spirit and body, and to combine martial will and physical body kept on flashing through his mind. Audrey flew around him, looking at Fang Xinjian with an endless longing in her eyes. The astonishing Audrey was wearing a white, furry cloak and a short blue skirt. The skirt was extremely short, revealing a pair of long, slender, and well-developed legs. She was wrapped in black stockings, showing off her beautiful figure. Coupled with her snow-white and tender face, she was like an enchantress in the snow, dancing among the snowflakes. "Xinjian, Are you going to strive for the third tier of the divine level? How did you manage to cultivate so quickly? Are you really going to the imperial capital? Audrey circled around Fang Xinjian and asked a question from time to time. Even if she didn't get an answer from Fang Xinjian, she still enjoyed it. A few minutes later, he saw that Fang Xinjian was still in a daze. It was as if he had entered a deep state of cultivation and was not paying attention to the outside world. Audrey suddenly approached Fang Xinjian and looked at Fang Xinjian's face with a perplexed expression. The remarkable abilities, martial arts, and strength that Fang Xinjian had displayed were now in control of the 7 great aristocratic families, the Atlantis, and countless other influences. A man like this would be extremely attractive to any woman. As the #1 beauty in the northern ice region, Audrey naturally had requirements and fantasies for her future partner. However, no matter what she had thought in the past, Fang Xinjian's current performance had far exceeded any of her expectations in the past. He had already exceeded her expectations. The only thing that displeased her was that Fang Xinjian did not seem to be interested in her at all. At the next moment, Fang Xinjian's eyes moved, as if he was looking at Audrey. Audrey's expression froze, and she retreated rapidly while crying out, "You're awake!" Fang Xinjian's brows twitched, and the flesh and blood throughout his body suddenly squirmed intensely. He looked at his palm and clenched it hard, releasing crackling explosive sounds. He could sense that waves of power were brewing in his body, and his body was reassembling itself in a way that had never happened before. The various secret techniques and martial arts from the 7 great clans, Holy Light, Dark Shadow, Night Massacre, Thunder King, Fervent Dragon, Reverie, and Heavenly Gates, flashed through his mind. The 10 levels of Mystical Prince and the world's top sword arts talent allowed Fang Xinjian to easily master them and then reassemble them freely to help him reforge his body. As Fang Xinjian's body moved up and down, layers of stacking swords appeared on his skin. It was as if countless long swords had formed his body. On the level of physical particles, each of them seemed to have been completely changed, turning into 4 long swords. It was just like Fang Xinjian's heaven-connecting sword physique. However, this change only lasted for a short few seconds. At the next moment, the physical particles returned to their original state. The characteristics of physical substances undergo a tremendous change due to their structures. Fang Xinjian had read through the many manuals from the Mystic Abyss Heavenly Emperor, Full Moon Shrine, Astral Sovereign Palace, and the 7 great clans. He had a good understanding of the methods to condense the physical body. However, in general, it was nothing more than the combination of ether particles and physical particles, changing the structure of physical substances and creating different characteristics of the physical body. In the end, it would be able to become one with the martial will. Therefore, at the next moment, Fang Xinjian's body exploded abruptly. At the next moment, the power of countless ether particles gathered once again, turning into a faint human figure. The reforging of the physical body had begun. Elsewhere, in the faraway imperial city, the first prince was standing in the training room, swinging his fists and legs. He was practicing the martial arts of the ancient path of hell in a methodical manner. Although it was the most basic martial arts, he did not appear to be dispirited or belittling them in the least. Instead, he was extremely serious in his cultivation. Half an hour later, the first prince came to a stop, let out a long breath, and stopped his cultivation. He walked to the stone table at the side, rested for a while, and then poured himself some water and drank some tea. He appeared to be at ease, not showing any signs of being dispirited from having his martial arts crippled. However, at the next moment, his gaze frowned slightly, and he looked under the teapot. A piece of paper had been placed there without him knowing. He picked up the piece of paper and saw a single word written on it, Shang. Looking at the words on the piece of paper, he broke into a cold smile, seeming to be filled with disdain. In the northern ice region, in the huge ice bed at the bottom of a river, the fifth prince was sealed in layers of ice mountains. At an extremely low temperature of -200 degrees Celsius, the entire world seemed to have come to a standstill. At the next moment, the fifth prince opened his eyes abruptly, and 2 streams of cold light were unleashed from his body. His entire body trembled fiercely, and then the ice mountains, which weighed several million tons, dashed out from the river bed and flew into midair. With a long howl, endless cold air scattered out in all directions, and the ice mountains, which weighed several million tons, turned into countless ice and snow that scattered out. The area within a range of 1,000 lis was covered in heavy snow. Hiding my claws and teeth, enduring all sorts of hardships, I've finally succeeded. The corners of the fifth prince's lips curled up into an evil smile. He had finally attained a breakthrough to the divine level. However, just then, he turned his head abruptly and saw a masked lady dressed in palace clothes standing there. "Mother? Why are you here?" The lady dressed in palace clothes let out a cold laugh and said, "If I still didn't come, my son would have become a good-for-nothing. To think that an empire's prince can't even be compared to AB** starred and can only hide away to focus on his cultivation?" "Mother," the fifth prince said furiously, "I'm only hiding temporarily. I've already cultivated the Azura path and attained the divine level. After I've stabilized my cultivation, I'll look for that Feng Xinjian to seek revenge. There's no need. If you were to go now, you'll only be sending yourself to your death, and you'll be getting further and further away from the throne." With that, the lady in palace clothes tapped out lightly with her finger, and a piece of paper floated down before the fifth prince. A faint word, Shang, was written on the piece of paper. "I have no idea what your father is thinking, allowing that Feng Xinjian to continue getting stronger. Come with me to meet someone. He'll have a way to kill Feng Xinjian. Only by killing Feng Xinjian and snatching his trump card will you have the chance to inherit the throne." Chapter 665. At the peak of a snowy mountain, Feng Xinjian's body floated slowly. The surrounding magnetic fields were changing intensely, releasing streams of colorful light that encompassed Feng Xinjian's body like layers of rainbows. At this moment, it was as if he had become a world of his own, exuding a tremendous magnetic field that resonated with Miracle World's magnetic field. His entire body was going through a tremendous change. Each physical particle was tightly connected with ether particles. His stomach, lungs, kidneys, and other parts continued to degrade and disappear. Feng Xinjian no longer needed these backward ether organs. Even his heart was turned into an energy furnace and transferred to the center of Feng Xinjian's torso. What flowed in his blood vessels was no longer blood, but a transparent liquid that contained energy that surpassed that of blood by several 10,000 times. Feng Xinjian's entire body was progressing in a non-human direction. 3 days later, Feng Xinjian's entire body appeared to be completely white, exuding a glazed color. Most of the organs in his body had disappeared, leaving behind countless blood vessels and nerves that continued to transmit energy and electrical signals. His physical body and ether particles were closely connected, and there were no longer any weak points in his body. It did not matter which part of his body was attacked or which part of his body was sliced open. The tissues throughout his entire body seemed to have the same structure and substance. The advantage of this was that he would be able to better absorb the energy from ether particles. Simultaneously, after receiving the reinforcement from his martial will, his physical body would be able to unleash the power of his martial will explosively even more perfectly. Everything happened too quickly. Something that ordinary geniuses would need a few months or even years to accomplish had only taken Feng Xinjian a few days. After completing the retraining of his physical body, he lifted his head and looked toward the sky. With a flash, He dashed up several tens of leagues into the sky, charging toward the 9-tiered heavens in outer space. He was going to strive for the second tier of the 9-tiered heavens. The second tier of the 9-tiered heavens nurtured the profoundness of the combination of the physical body and will. It required the cultivator to charge in with their own physical body. Fang Xinjian plunged in and felt violent powers smashing toward him like water waves. The second tier of the 9-tiered heavens was different from the first tier, which consisted of battles and massacres to increase the power of one's martial will. This time around, it was true that one would have to go through a test of one's martial will and physical strength in order to comprehend the mysterious connection between the two. At the instant that Fang Xinjian entered the second tier of the 9-tiered heavens, he felt an endless power colliding toward him. This was the power that appeared when the entire world dissipated into outer space. Even Fang Xinjian was unable to resist it. His body paused slightly, and the heaven-connecting sword physique, which was condensed from his martial will, was knocked out from his physical body. His physical body and will were separated. At the next moment, he saw that his physical body was still standing in void space, but his consciousness was being pulled by the world's great power. The light and shadows around him changed rapidly, and each light spot brought out a long line. His consciousness had already gone to an unknown place. When Fang Xinjian came back to his senses, he felt as if all his clothes had been taken off. At the same time, he found a beautiful girl lying under him. Her face was stained with tears, and her eyes were tightly shut. She seemed to be in pain, but also seemed to be unconscious. Fang Xinjian was stunned for 3 seconds. It was only when the young girl on the bed let out a series of moans that he stood up abruptly. With a wave of his right hand, a bathrobe in the distance flew toward him and automatically covered him. What kind of joke is this? The young girl was still in an unconscious state. Fang Xinjian closed his eyes and sent his martial will sweeping out, scanning the situation within a range of several kilometers. How could this be? The second tier of the 9-tiered heavens should be to fall into an eternal dream and suffer from the pain of reincarnation. One would need to rely on the unrivaled connection between their will and physical body to wake up amidst the endless cycles of reincarnation. Only then would one be considered to have passed the test. The myriad stars' palace's astral ancestor was bewitched by the endless cycles of reincarnation. That was why his memories were in a mess and he went berserk. But isn't this feeling a little too realistic? Fang Xinjian blinked and looked at his palm. Right now, his physical body was that of a pale-faced, skinny, and weak young man. It was obvious that he was a young man who had indulged too much in debauchery. There was no way it could be compared to his original physical body. However, the senses of sight, smell, and touch were extremely clear. He did not feel that this was a dream at all. Moreover, his martial will scanned the area within a range of several kilometers. Right now, the place he had appeared in was a modern city. Wait a minute. The dream of reincarnation in the second tier of the 9-tiered heavens is just a recount of the past. Fang Xinjian moved his finger, and the television in the distance switched on, broadcasting many news articles. Trump wants to challenge the one middle school policy? Accused of being superficial. South Korea's prosecutors have released the results of the investigation into political affairs, and Park Geun-hye has been placed on file again. Japan has lodged a solemn protest to China regarding the matter of interference missiles. It's a country I don't know and a person I don't know. Fang Xinjian stroked his chin, still assessing the situation before him in his mind. But it's still a modern civilization that is similar to Earth's. What's worse is that there aren't any signs that I'm dreaming at all. Could it be that this isn't a dream? Instead, I've come to another planet or even another parallel universe. Fang Xinjian recalled the situation where his will had been dragged. That feeling was as if he was flying at superluminal speed. Did I really project my will out? And then I have to sense it back myself? If that's the case. Fang Xinjian frowned as he sensed the fatigue coming from his body, the weakness in his lower body, the swelling pain in his abdomen, the weakness in his heart, and the oxygen saturation in his brain. All of these negative feelings had been very far away from him, but he had not expected that they would appear once again at this moment. This physical body is too weak. Fang Xinjian frowned and clenched his fist, instantly crushing this current physical body into dust. Countless fragments kept on spinning, turning into the shape of a vortex. Then all sorts of spatulas, tables, chairs, and electrical appliances gathered from the various corners of the room and were thrown into the vortex. Streams of electricity flashed, and Fang Xinjian's body reassembled, returning to his original appearance. Sensing that his new physical body did not feel any fatigue or weakness, and that his mind was extremely clear, Fang Xinjian clenched his fists, feeling much more comfortable. It's probably the body of a second transition knight. It's not very useful, but the level of comfort is much higher. Next, I'll have to think of a way to make use of the senses of my physical body and will to return. How should I do that? However, just then, an ear-piercing scream rang out from behind him. The beautiful young lady, who had been unconscious, had woken up. She seemed to have seen the scene of Fang Xinjian reassembling his physical body. She let out a scream and once again fell unconscious. Chapter 666. Half an hour later, Fang Xinjian sat cross-legged and floated in midair. The television in the distance kept on changing channels, and 2 laptops were flying around. With every second there would be several tens to over 100 web pages popping up. Behind Fang Xinjian, a man's identification card floated by. The man's photo bore a 70% to 80% resemblance to him. This man who had been possessed looked very similar to him, and even his name was Fang Xinjian. Simultaneously, Fang Xinjian was also working hard to understand this world's culture, background, and situation. In terms of culture, it's very similar. Even the language and words are very similar. Even the terrain and starry sky are the same, and it's still in a similar solar system. Given the universe's environment, it's unlikely for such a coincidence to happen. Then is it really a parallel universe? Therefore, the terrain and culture are similar, but the specific details and characters are completely different? And this world doesn't seem to have any extraordinary powers similar to miracle worlds. Simultaneously, Fang Xinjian checked the situation of his martial will. Without ether particles, my martial will can only rely on basic energy to replenish itself. The efficiency is too low. I must find a way to sense my physical body as soon as possible. With so many people clearing the 9-tiered heavens, it's impossible for it to be a dead end. However, Fang Xinjian had already tried a few times to close his eyes and meditate according to the methods in the manuals of the Mystic Abyss Heavenly Emperor, Full Moon Shrine, and other factions, using his martial will to sense the existence of his physical body. However, he had never succeeded. By right, with how powerful my martial will is, it should be very easy for me to sense my physical body with the help of the mysterious connection between my physical body and will. Why is it that I can't do it now? So many people have succeeded in history. There's no reason why I can't succeed. Fang Xinjian then thought of the insights in those manuals. They all seemed to have gone to a world similar to Miracle World. Moreover, they would all lose their memories at the start, and each of them would take a different amount of time to awaken. Could this be the reason? I came from Earth? That's why I went to Earth's parallel universe and not Miracle Worlds? Just as Fang Xinjian was halfway through his thoughts, his head suddenly turned 180 degrees, and he looked toward the head of the bed. It was unknown when the beautiful girl had woken up again. When she saw Fang Xinjian's head turn 180 degrees, she screamed again and fainted. Troublesome. Fang Xinjian hooked his finger and the young lady immediately flew over. With a wave of his hand, the tap was turned on and a large basin of cold water was poured over, splashing onto the young lady's body. The girl opened her eyes and saw Fang Xinjian in front of her. She screamed again, but this time, she didn't faint. Instead, she looked at Fang Xinjian in horror and shouted, "Don't kill me, please don't kill me!" "I'm not trying to kill you," Fang Xinjian said helplessly. "Besides, why would I want to kill you? Aren't you an alien? I promise I won't reveal your identity. Please don't kill me," the girl cried. The girl's tear-stained face, coupled with the fact that she was naked and only holding onto a bedsheet, made her look abnormally pitiful. Fang Xinjian shook his head and said, "Go and put on your clothes first. Also, I won't kill you." The girl changed her clothes and washed her face, revealing a cute face with a little baby fat. When she changed her clothes, she did a little check on her body. When she found that she hadn't been violated, she breathed a sigh of relief. As there were no clothes for girls in the room, she could only change into a loose pair of jeans and a t-shirt, revealing a large area of her snow-white chest. The two protrusions formed a shadow on her snow-white chest, which looked extremely attractive. She sat on the chair with some fear. From time to time, she looked at Fang Xinjian in front of her, as well as the computer, TV, and books that kept spinning around Fang Xinjian. Her eyes showed curiosity and nervousness. Suddenly, Fang Xinjian asked, "Who are you? Why are you on my bed?" Thinking of this, the young girl snorted angrily and said, "You brought me here yesterday. Don't you remember?" Looking at Fang Xinjian's confused look, the young girl became even angrier. However, when she thought of his strange ability, she did not dare to act up. Feeling increasingly aggrieved, she said with reddened eyes, "At the company gathering yesterday, you gave me a glass of wine. After I drank it, I felt dazed and then fainted. When I woke up, I was already here." Fang Xinjian nodded. It seemed that he had used this identity to rape this young girl. "How boring." He asked again, "And who am I?" The young girl was stunned. However, under Fang Xinjian's intense gaze, she still replied carefully, "You're Fang Xinjian, the general manager of the Fang Tian Corporation, the eldest young master of the Fang clan." Fang Xinjian stroked his chin and mumbled to himself, "My identity in a parallel world?" A hint of comprehension suddenly flashed in his heart. If the second tier of the nine-tiered heavens projects one's body into a parallel world, then it's not hard to understand why I've come to this world that's like Earth. Is it also because I'm not in Miracle World's parallel universe that it's hard for me to sense the existence of my physical body? By now, Fang Xinjian already had some guesses about his situation. However, he had yet to think of a way to resolve it. Looking at the pitiful young girl who was pursing her lips, Fang Xinjian asked, "What do you do in the company?" Human affairs. From today onward, you'll be my personal secretary." "Ah." The young girl let out an astonished cry and said, "No, no, no, I can't do it. If I say you can, then you can. I promise that I won't say anything about you. Please let me off," the young girl said with a crying face. Fang Xinjian said calmly, "How much was your salary when you were working at the front desk?" 5,000 a month. "Then from today onward, I'll give you 50,000 a month. You'll be my personal secretary." The young girl was stunned for a moment, and 50,000 instantly appeared in her mind. Then the money rapidly turned into countless meats, hot pot, sushi, barbecue, fish, and many other food items. There was also a lot of clothes and cosmetics. Starlight flashed in her eyes, and a drop of saliva flowed down unknowingly. Before she could get over the temptation of money, Fang Xinjian had already floated into the cloakroom. At the next moment, suits, ties, belts, and many other clothes were automatically put on him. "Oh right. What's your name?" The young girl was stunned for a moment and said in a daze, "Zhao Yuding." Suddenly, she reacted, sat up straight and asked, "You're really giving me 50,000 a month?" I won't sell my body." Will you eat me up? I won't. In that instant, Fang Xinjian had already changed his clothes. With a snap of his fingers, he walked out, and Zhao Yuding floated out with him. Let's go. Accompany me to the company. Chapter 667. Huh? But today is Sunday. Then inform everyone to have a meeting. Zhao Yuding asked, What meeting? A strange gleam flashed in Fang Xinjian's eyes as he thought, since this is Earth's parallel world, then this place should also have some connection with Miracle World's parallel world. If I find that connection, I might be able to sense my physical body again. Then, given the current situation, as one of the magnates in this world, the Fang clan might know something. As he had just arrived in this world, Fang Xinjian still maintained a certain level of caution. He brought Zhao Yuding to the underground car park, frowned, and asked, Where's my car? Zhao Yuding pointed to a black sports car in the distance and said, It's this one. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The sports car cut across the traffic like a black bolt of lightning, driving toward the financial district in the city center. Along the way, it attracted the gazes of countless people. Arriving below the building, the black sports car drew a long arc, bringing along a series of afterimages. Finally, amidst Zhao Yuding's sharp cries, it came to a stop at the building's entrance. Sir, you can't park here. 2 security guards immediately dashed over, but Fang Xinjian tossed the keys to them. Help me park the car. With a sweep of his martial will, the 2 security guards' gazes went into a slight daze. They felt that Fang Xinjian's words made a lot of sense and obediently went to park the car. Zhao Yuding had just gotten out of the car when she started vomiting. Fang Xinjian lifted his head and looked at the 30-story building before him, and the information about the Fang Tian Corporation flowed in his mind. Finance, foreign trade, and real estate? They cover quite a wide range. With this amount, it should be enough to investigate some things. With the powerful martial will and mental prowess of a divine-level expert, Fang Xinjian spent about 3 hours to understand the situation of the entire Fang Tian Corporation. He also made use of the prowess of his martial will to get a hold of most of the department heads. However, it was only through this understanding that he understood that although the Fang Tian Corporation he was in control of was still a huge organization that spanned across finance, trade, and real estate, it was now being targeted. A piece of land that was worth over 1 billion had been sealed up by the government, and a large amount of funds had been frozen. A huge problem had arisen in the liquidity of the entire corporation. Initially, I wanted to borrow the power of this corporation to help me find clues about Miracle World. But now, it seems that I'll have to help the Fang Tian Corporation to resolve this problem first. At the thought of this, Fang Xinjian waved his hand and an invitation card appeared. This was the birthday invitation of the daughter of the Song family, a large family in the city. This time, the Song family had their eyes on the Fang family. At this time, they had sent an invitation, and the meaning was clear. Just as Fang Xinjian was looking at the invitation before him, the door to the office was slammed open with a bang. A woman who bore a resemblance to him walked in. She was dressed in work clothes and had a head full of capable short hair. With one look, one could tell that she was a strong woman in the modern city. This was Fang Xinjian's elder half-sister, Fang Xingyue. Looking at Fang Xinjian, she flew into a rage. You've changed your female secretary again? Is your brain made of white paste? If you want to find a woman, can't you go out and find one? Don't you know that all the female employees in the company know about your glorious deeds? As Fang Xinjian's elder half-sister, she had always disapproved of his way of doing things. This was especially so after his parents had passed away in a car accident, and the great corporation had been handed over to this profligate. Fang Xinjian had been committing all sorts of atrocities, causing the corporation's performance to decline incessantly. Last year, he had even taken liberties with the Song family's young miss, causing the Song family to keep sniping at the corporation. At the thought of this, Fang Xingyue became even more furious. She looked at Fang Xinjian and said, "Tonight is Miss Song's birthday party. It wasn't easy for me to get this invitation card for you. You must apologize to her properly. With the Song family's influence in the government, they can easily toy with us with just a little finger. Do you understand? The government has a strong background? I understand now." Fang Xinjian nodded and judged. "Then I'll just subdue this Song family while I'm at it." He then lifted his head and looked at Fang Xingyue. She was clearly much more experienced than the Fang Xinjian of this world. She probably knew more. He suddenly snapped his fingers, and the entire office desk flew up. "Have you seen extraordinary powers before?" At the sight of this scene, Fang Xingyue's countenance turned pale. However, she still maintained her composure. "What tricks are you playing now? Magic? Naked 3D? Fang Xinjian smiled and tapped out with his finger. Fang Xingyue floated up, and she let out a sharp cry in disbelief, saying, "Fang Xinjian, what have you done?" Fang Xinjian shook his head. With a sweep of his martial will, Fang Xingyue fainted. She doesn't know? Is it because her level isn't high enough, or is it true that there are no extraordinary powers in this world? If even the Song family, one of the dominant clans in the central city, doesn't know about this, then it can probably be confirmed that there really aren't any extraordinary powers in this world. By the time Fang Xingyue woke up, her brows trembling, she realized that she was already sitting in a black sedan. Fang Xinjian was sitting next to her, looking at his phone. The web pages on his phone kept on jumping up, flashing with many search results for extraordinary powers, extraordinary abilities, and conferred night. Fang Xingyue felt a slight headache in her head. Suddenly, she recalled the horrifying scene in the office. She opened her eyes wide, looked at Fang Xinjian, and asked, "What did you do earlier?" Fang Xinjian shrugged and said without turning his head, "I just asked you a few questions." Fang Xingyue opened her mouth, suspecting that she might have been too tired and that she was hallucinating. Just then, Zhao Yuding, who was in the driver's seat, stopped the car and said, "Boss, we've arrived." Fang Xinjian got off the car, looked at Fang Xingyue, who was still sitting there in a daze, and said, "Let's go. We've arrived at the Song clan's manor." Fang Xingyue was stunned. She looked at the luxurious manor outside the car and said in a daze, "It's already night? We've arrived at the Song clan?" She lowered her head and realized that she had changed into a gown without her knowing. Zhao Yuding, who was wearing a blue gown, said, "Manager Fang, I helped you change into this." However, Fang Xinjian could not be bothered with them and said, "Let's go, let's go. Let's not waste any more time." However, Fang Xingyue still felt dizzy as she followed Zhao Yuding to the gathering in the manor. After entering the huge hall, she saw that the people coming and going were all famous bosses, officials, scholars, and even some first- or second-rate celebrities. Clearly, many people had rushed over to attend the Song clan's young Mrs. birthday in order to suck up to the Song clan. In such a gathering, Zhao Yuding appeared to be very unconfident and unnatural. On the other hand, Fang Xingyue had already recovered and naturally blended into the gathering, chatting with people everywhere. However, the current situation of the Fang Tian Corporation had already become the topic of discussion for many people in the upper class. Most of them cautiously kept a distance from Fang Xingyue, not daring to get close to her. They were afraid that they would be misunderstood by the Song clan and be targeted as well. Chapter 668. A fat and bald fatso looked at Fang Xingyue from afar and grinned. "Isn't that the Fang clan's eldest young mistress? Why did the Song clan let them in this time?" Beside him, a wealthy man who was also a little fat said, "Boss Jiang, why? Have you taken a fancy to her? I heard that a few years ago, when you were wooing someone, you were slapped in the face." The bald boss Jiang touched his face, and a hint of hatred flashed in his eyes. That was in the past. Right now, the Fong Tian Corporation is incurring losses every day. I don't even know if they can survive this year. After the Fong clan is bankrupted, it shouldn't be a problem for me to have some fun with this eldest young mistress, right? At this point, the two of them looked at each other and chuckled. Fong Xingyue ran one round, feeling increasingly disheartened. I'm sorry. Our company doesn't have any extra funds recently. There's nothing we can do. This matter was decided by the city. I don't know the exact situation either. An internal investigation is just asking you guys to investigate it yourselves. If I knew the reason, would I still need you guys to investigate it? Miss Fong, we all know what's going on, so I won't say much. It's your Fong clan's fault for not doing a good job. You should think of a solution yourself. 1 year ago, she had still been the Fong clan's eldest young mistress whom everyone sought after. 1 year later, she had become a jinx that everyone wanted to avoid. Xingyue. Just as Fong Xingyue was feeling extremely depressed, a man wearing gold-rimmed glasses walked up to her and asked with a concerned expression, "Are you all right?" Fong Xingyue lifted her head and realized that it was her university classmate, Li Wei. His family background was also very strong, and he had once had a crush on her back in university. At the thought of this, a hint of hope flashed in her eyes. Li Wei, I heard that you have a good relationship with the Song clan's young mistress. Can you? Li Wei waved his hand and said, Song Lily is the granddaughter that the Song clan's old master dotes on the most. There's nothing I can do. But... Fong Xingyue's eyes lit up as she said, But what? As long as it's something that I can do, I'll definitely do it. Li Wei coughed and said, If we're a family, then given the relationship between grandfather and the Song clan's old master, it's not impossible for us to let this matter go. Fong Xingyue's expression turned cold as she looked at Li Wei with a mocking expression. Li Wei couldn't stand being stared at by him and said awkwardly, You told me to say this, so I'm just telling the truth. Done. Fong Xinjian, who was watching from afar, could no longer bear to watch this woman running around like an ant on a hot pan, bleeding everywhere she touched. Fong Xinjian walked over slowly and said to Fong Xingyue, I'll settle this. You don't have to think of any ideas. Looking at Fong Xinjian, a look of disdain flashed across Li Wei's eyes. You can solve it? I'm afraid that Miss Song will want to skin you as soon as she sees you. You only know how to eat, drink, and have fun all day. What can you solve? After saying that, he threw a glance at Fong Xingyue and said, Xingyue, I think it's better for you to make early preparations. With your abilities, if it wasn't for this younger brother of yours dragging you down, you wouldn't have come to this. With that, he turned around and left. Fong Xingyue wore a bleak expression. It seemed that the situation was more serious than she had imagined. A hint of despair flashed in her eyes. However, Fong Xinjian still appeared nonchalant. He was waiting for the people from the Song clan to arrive, so that he could get rid of all the influential people present. The two of them brought Zhao Yuding back to a corner of the hall. It was as if there was an invisible force field in this corner, and no one dared to approach within a 10-meter radius. 10 minutes later, the hall suddenly turned dark. As a beam of white light shone down, an extremely beautiful young lady with fair skin and long and slender legs, who was wearing a floor-length white dress, slowly walked down the stairs. It was the Song clan's young miss, Song Lily. Song Lily's gaze swept across the hall. When she passed by Fong Xinjian and Fong Xingyue, a hint of undetectable disgust flashed in the depths of her eyes. This scum. Humph, humph. When he apologizes to me later, I'll make him kowtow and admit his mistake in front of so many people. Next to her, a middle-aged man with a muscular build and wearing a black suit supported Song Lily's hand as he walked down the stairs with a smile. It was Song Lily's father, Song Weiwa. Looking at Song Lily, who was dressed splendidly, everyone present gasped in surprise. That diamond necklace. It was just released in France last month, right? I heard that it cost 12 million US dollars and was won by a mysterious buyer. To think that it's the Song Clan. That dress is also a limited edition and costs 2 million US dollars. Although it was just a simple appearance, there was an overwhelming feeling of wealth gushing out. In the distance, Li Wei had once again walked up to Fang Xingyue's side and said, "Xingyue, you have to consider this carefully. Letting you guys into the birthday party is already the last chance the Song Clan is giving you. If you don't show enough sincerity, I'm afraid." Just as he was halfway through his words, Fang Xinjian interrupted, "That's the Song Clan's young miss and her father?" Li Wei frowned and said somewhat impatiently, "That's right. If you want to go up and apologize, you'd better hurry up later. There are many important characters lining up." Fang Xinjian did not mind Li Wei's tone and merely continued to ask, "Then does he keep his word in the Song Clan?" Li Wei laughed out loud, as if he was mocking Fang Xinjian's ignorance. "You don't even know Mr. Song's level? Even the leaders of the ministries and commissions don't dare to offend him, and he's one of the core powers in the Song Clan. Do you really not understand the situation? Other than the Song Clan's old master, there's no one else in the entire Song Clan who can compare to him. It's useless even if you go and beg someone else in the Song Clan." "That'll do." Fang Xinjian then stood up. "Just capture him." Just as Li Wei was about to continue mocking Fang Xinjian, he opened his eyes wide at the next moment as if he had seen a ghost. Fang Xinjian took one step at a time, heading toward the Song Clan's father and daughter. However, what was terrifying was that with each step he took, the ground under his feet shattered. Countless pieces of the floorboards broke and floated up into the air. Wherever Fang Xinjian passed by, all the food, furniture, floorboards, and electric lights would turn into dust and float in midair. Black flames burned fiercely on his body, and he was like a demon lord who had come from hell. Under everyone's horrified gazes, he walked toward the Song Clan's father and daughter. Violent martial will gushed out from his body, locking down the movements of everyone present. Everyone could only watch this scene in a daze. Their pupils contracted crazily, but they were unable to do anything or say a single word. Fang Xinjian walked up to the Song Clan's father and daughter in this seemingly still environment. However, he did not receive any retaliation, nor did he encounter any defensive restrictions. Faced with the duo's astonished gazes, a hint of desolation flashed in Fang Xinjian's eyes. No extraordinary power? This is really troublesome. Without extraordinary powers, it meant that the chances of clues related to Miracle World appearing would be even lower. The possibility of Fang Xinjian sensing his physical body would also be lowered. At this moment, Fang Xinjian could not help but think, why did the second tier of the 9-tiered heavens project a divine-level expert's consciousness into a parallel world? If each parallel world in Miracle World interfered with the other parallel worlds, what would the outcome be? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.